Chapter 31:52. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a terrifying power locking him down. That pair of eyes seemed to want to scrape the flesh off his body. The middle-aged man only looked at Yi Shiwen with a sneer on his face. Yi Shiwen's face immediately turned cold because he also felt that this person was not a kind person. It could even be said that he was here for him. Yi Shiwen recalled a lot of information in his mind, but he still could not remember when he had offended such a person. "Who are you?" Yi Shiwen asked. Before the middle-aged man could speak, Astro Emperor immediately said, "Metal Eater Ant King, what do you want?" "What do I want? Is there any place for you to speak?" The middle-aged man did not take Astro Emperor seriously at all. "Friend Wu Di, be careful. This person is a Metal Eater Ant King. His original form is a Metal Eater ant raised by the heavens and earth. He is extremely powerful and achieved Dao very early. Most importantly, it is said that before the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor defected, he was saved by the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor once. The two are very close," Astro Emperor said. Only then did Yi Shiwen know the identity of this person. The Metal Eater ant was another kind of exotic beast. In comparison, it seemed to be no weaker than the World Annihilation Monarch butterfly. Moreover, compared to the butterfly monarch he had cultivated for a longer time, so his cultivation was far superior to the World Annihilation Monarch butterfly. He was already at the peak of the sixth realm. No wonder he did not take Astro Emperor seriously at all. Even if Astro Emperor had the Tai Soul Gathering Elixir and his cultivation had improved greatly, there was no comparison between him and Astro Emperor. "Sneaky, what do you want to say? You might as well say it openly," the Metal Eater Ant King said disdainfully, clearly sensing the fluctuations of the spirit communication between the two. "What? Are you trying to get revenge for the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor?" Yi Shiwen sneered and looked directly at the Metal Eater Ant King. The Metal Eater Ant King could not help but sneer. "How is that possible? He is a traitor who defected from the Fortune God dynasty. I just want to know who you are and how many of your rumors are true and how many are false." The metal-devouring Ant Emperor was naturally not a fool, and it was even more impossible for it to fall into Yi Shiwen's trap. No matter how good their personal relationship was, it was an indisputable fact that they had defected to the outer domain. Once he got involved with the Gung Metal Tiger King, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Shiwen saw that he wasn't fooled, but he didn't care. He just faintly smiled and said, "What if I tell you that everything is true? Then I'll have to take a good look. It's said that you're from the human race of the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. I see that the martial arts of the human race are nothing more than mediocre." The gold-devouring Ant Emperor continued to provoke Yi Shiwen. Nowadays, it was no longer a secret that Yi Shiwen came from a different world. Among the many different worlds, only the myriad heavens and the myriad heavens had the human race, and the human race in the Fortune God dynasty also had the same origin. Therefore, Yi Shiwen's origin was naturally no longer a secret. Although there were only a few people from the myriad heavens and realms, it wasn't that there weren't any. It wasn't like there were no traces of them. "My human race's martial arts are mediocre? Do you think you're qualified to say such words?" Yi Shiwen sneered. "That's the truth. The human race is only a second-rate race. In fact, it's on the verge of extinction. Don't you know that?" The gold-devouring Ant Emperor laughed. "Star Sovereign, what's this guy's origin?" Yi Shiwen didn't answer directly. Instead, he looked at the Star Sovereign and asked. "Taoist Martial Emperor, the gold-devouring Ant Emperor is a rogue cultivator. He hasn't joined any large sect. This time, he was also recruited by the Fortune God dynasty." The Star Sovereign was a little puzzled as to why Yi Shiwen asked this question, but he still answered. "So he's a guy without a backer? Have you read The Journey to the West? A guy without a backer still dares to be arrogant. He really doesn't want to live." Yi Shiwen suddenly stood up. He even dared to kill the Azura Holy Emperor with a backer, let alone the gold-devouring Ant Emperor without a backer. Even a sovereign emperor of the sixth realm was too weak without a backer. Yi Shiwen was a living example. Even with his cultivation of the sixth realm, he had to face the full siege of the heavenly Dao sect. "What did you say?" The gold-devouring Ant Emperor asked coldly, but he couldn't hide the joy on his face. Clearly, he had planned this long ago. He was trying to provoke Yi Shiwen and thoroughly enrage him. You want to challenge me? Do you dare to come to the life and death arena? So you're prepared, but you'll die all the same. It's just a matter of dying early or playing to your death. How could Yi Shiwen not see that this was the gold-devouring Ant Emperor's provocation? Unfortunately, the gold-devouring Ant Emperor didn't expect that Yi Shiwen had already broken through long ago. He wasn't at the peak of the 6th realm, but the 7th realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the guts to challenge Yi Shiwen. Let's go. The gold-devouring Ant Emperor stepped on a ray of light and flew away. Taoist Martial Emperor, you're really too impulsive. The Star Sovereign looked at Yi Shiwen with a wry smile. Even the Gung Metal Tiger King and the Eternal Saint Sovereign together are no match for me. What can a mere gold-devouring Ant Emperor do? Yi Shiwen sneered and didn't take it to heart. He wasn't afraid before he broke through. There was no reason for him to be afraid after breaking through. I've also heard of your glorious achievements, but this gold-devouring Ant Emperor is different. It can be said that he's even more troublesome and powerful than the Gung Metal Tiger King, said the Star Sovereign. In the peak of the 6th realm, he's almost invincible. Even if the 7th realm wants to kill him, it won't be that easy. Taoist Astral Sovereign, I appreciate your kindness, but you probably don't know how powerful I am. Many people probably don't know how powerful I am either. I'm new here. If I don't establish my dominance, who knows how many people will act like this idiot and treat me as a pushover. Now is the right time to establish my dominance. Yi Shiwen didn't hide his intentions from the Star Sovereign. He directly stated his plan. An expert like the gold-devouring Ant Emperor was suitable to establish his dominance. Star Emperor stared at Yi Shiwen, dumbfounded. It turned out that Yi Shiwen was not provoked at all. Clearly, he wanted to use the Metal Eater Ant Emperor to establish his power. But this idea was a bit shocking. If it were him, he would probably run away under the attack of the Metal Eater Ant Emperor. There was a difference of 2 realms between the two. Their real combat power was probably even more different than what was written on paper. But then he remembered that the guy in front of him wasn't a pushover either. Whether it was the Gung Metal Tiger King or the Eternal Saint Emperor, they were all top-notch experts in the 6th realm. But they were still beaten by him when they joined forces. Such a peerless villain obviously couldn't be judged by common sense. In his eyes, a peerless villain like the gold-devouring Ant Emperor was just a monkey being killed to scare the chicken. Ha ha ha, don't worry, Star Sovereign. As a friend of mine, I, Yi Shiwen, naturally have to experience these kinds of scenes. You should be used to the shocking things. Let's go, I'll beat him to death. Yi Shiwen laughed and patted the Star Sovereign's shoulder. Then, he turned into a ball of light and chased after the gold-devouring Ant Emperor. In Storm City, the life and death arena, which had not been used for a long time, was suddenly activated. It immediately alarmed many super experts who came from all over the Eastern Territory. Ordinary people had never heard of this life and death arena because it was not open to ordinary people. It was only used to resolve conflicts between emperors. Life and death were not involved. It was set up when the Fortune God dynasty was first established. At that time, the major forces would not let go of their past grievances just because they became subordinates of the Fortune God dynasty. The blood feud between them would only accumulate over time and become more serious. That was why the life and death arena was created. And once on the life and death arena, as the name suggested, life and death were not involved. This was a place used to resolve life and death duels between emperors. But many years had passed, and the conflicts between the various forces had eased. At least, it wasn't as hostile as it was now. Therefore, the life and death arena was used less often. In recent years, it was rarely used. After all, the emperors were respectable people. They were the rulers of the Fortune God dynasty and invincible existences. There was no need for them to fight to the death over a trivial matter. Therefore, the moment the life and death arena was activated, these emperors were alarmed. Who on earth was going to fight to the death with Pantheon Venerate at this critical juncture? Soon, Everyone saw a figure appear on the life and death arena, which was almost comparable to a world. It was the metal-devouring Ant King. Why is it the metal-devouring Ant King? What's wrong with him? Who is he looking for to fight to the death? Who knows? Although many experts have come this time, there are not many people who are worthy of him going to the life and death arena. I don't believe he dares to challenge those super giants of the 7th realm and above. That's right. However, under the 7th realm, he really has no rivals. Previously, the Eternal Saint Sovereign went to look for him, but in the end, he did not gain any advantage from him. He is extremely powerful. I heard from a big shot that although this metal-devouring Ant King is arrogant and despotic, he is indeed very strong. In terms of the 6th realm, no one is a match for him. Sooner or later, he will enter the 7th realm. Many people were very curious. Who on earth had the metal-devouring Ant King found a fight to the life and death arena? Because of the special nature of the life and death arena, it could only be entered if both parties were willing. Who would dare to fight to the life and death arena, knowing the strength of the metal-devouring Ant King? Soon, a figure also flew into the life and death arena. It was a young man in a green robe. His youthful face had a bit of determination, but his expression was very relaxed. It didn't seem like he had entered the life and death arena at all. Who on earth is this person? An emperor asked. He is Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. Finally, someone recognized him and exclaimed. Chapter 31:53. As someone shouted, everyone came to a sudden realization. Who exactly was this person in front of them? It could be said that Yi Shiwen had become very famous during this period of time. The fact that heavenly Taoism had hunted him down had already made him famous throughout the world. Moreover, the fact that he had defeated the Eternal Heart Divine Emperor and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor by himself in the Heavenly Palace was even more astonishing. Although they didn't know how true these rumors were. Even if Yi Shiwen was only comparable to the Eternal Divine Emperor and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, it was still a great achievement. These people were only half a step away from the giants of the 7th realm. They were the top existences who could call the wind and summon the rain. It seems that there will be another fierce battle. The Metal Eater Ant King is said to have a very good relationship with the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. It must want him dead. But Yi Shiwen is not an ordinary person. Both sides will definitely fight. But the Metal Eater Ant King doesn't dare to disobey the orders of the Battle Emperor. It won't dare to attack directly. Otherwise, even if it wins, it won't have a good ending. Yi Shiwen, you still dare to come up. The Metal Eater Ant King looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes that seemed to want to devour him. Isn't this what you want? Yi Shiwen smiled slightly and walked leisurely on the life and death arena. It seemed that he was not nervous at all because a battle was about to begin. He had already released his divine thoughts and had a panoramic view of the entire life and death arena. It should be said that the entire life and death arena was very sturdy. It was unknown how many masters had reinforced it. Even if he used his full strength, he didn't have to worry about the entire life and death arena collapsing. They say that you are very strong, but I don't believe it. I want to see how strong you are. The Metal Eater Ant King released endless spiritual power. At that moment, it seemed to release the weight of the entire world. I advise you to believe those rumors. Otherwise, you will regret it. Yi Shiwen had a faint smile on his face. You attack first. Otherwise, you won't have a chance to attack later. The Metal Eater Ant King just sneered at Yi Shiwen. His expression was full of indifference. You really don't know what's good for you. You're seeking death. A silhouette slowly emerged outside the life and death ring. It was none other than Emperor Li. He was looking in the direction of the metal-devouring Ant Queen. There was some disdain in his eyes, and the target of his disdain was the gold-devouring Ant Queen, because he had seen Yi Shiwen's power with his own eyes. Not only was there not the slightest trace of exaggeration in the description of Yi Shiwen in the rumor, on the contrary, it somewhat underestimated him. Not only had Yi Shiwen blocked the attacks of the Gungjin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor by himself, but he had also saved the Eternal Divine Emperor and the Gungjin Tiger Emperor's lives. They would have died on the spot if the Pantheon Imperial Palace hadn't appeared at that time. Of course, the eternal sage emperor wasn't able to survive in the end and died at the hands of Pan Tian Tian Sr. However, this didn't affect his evaluation of Yi Shiwen's strength. Therefore, in his eyes, the metal-devouring ant emperor was courting death. You still want to avenge the Gungjin Tiger Emperor? Even if the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was present, he wouldn't dare to cause trouble for him, let alone you. Emperor Li, you actually have such a high evaluation of him? Beside him, the other emperors were all shocked. They were very clear about the power of Emperor Li. It could be said that he was already at the peak of the 6th realm, and it was possible for him to step into the 7th realm at any time. He was almost a quasi-giant. However, he had such a high evaluation of Yi Shiwen, which was unexpected. Moreover, the evaluation of the metal-devouring ant queen was that it didn't know life from death, and that it was courting death. How could they not be shocked by this? Is this a high evaluation? You'll know in a moment. I'm just judging the matter as it stands. Emperor Li smiled slightly. Regarding Yi Shiwen's strength, with his pride, he could only accept it. However, this metal-devouring ant queen dared to provoke Yi Shiwen. If it wasn't courting death, then what was it? Moreover, he had cooperated with Yi Shiwen before, so they could be considered to have some friendship. It was much better than with the metal-devouring ant queen. There was a hidden thought in the depths of his heart, which was that even he didn't dare to have such a thought. However, this metal-devouring ant queen actually dared to challenge him to a life-and-death arena, which actually made him feel uncomfortable. Originally, I wanted you to make the first move, but since you want me to make the first move, then I'll show you. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's body rose like a demon god. Countless divine law chains flew out of his body. It seemed as if the power of the entire world had gathered on his body. Bang! Yi Shiwen moved. He suddenly stepped on the ground and directly stomped a large pit. His figure directly flew out, and in almost the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the metal-devouring ant queen. Fast! 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 Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast, and in an instant, he had already rushed in front of the metal-devouring ant queen. The martial emperor seal suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand, and then suddenly fell. Boom! Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast, and the metal-devouring ant queen had no time to react at all. Its entire body was sent flying, and it directly tore a huge crack in the sky. Everyone held their breath and seemed to be a little scared. The metal-devouring ant queen had been sent flying with just a single move. It was not a match at all. The combat strength of both sides was not on the same level at all. After a long time, someone finally spoke. What a fast speed! What powerful strength! This is simply frightening. The metal-devouring ant queen is known for its strength, and the power law that it cultivates has long reached a level that no one has ever reached before. How can it be unable to even block a single blow from it? What kind of physique does this Yi Shiwen have? Many sovereign emperors had sharp eyes and naturally could see that it was just a simple exchange. But the laws of both sides had collided, and in this aspect, the metal-devouring ant queen was completely at a disadvantage. Only Sovereign Li was not the slightest bit surprised. The Gung Metal Tiger King was also famous for its tyrannical and invincible body, but in the end, it was still beaten up. This in itself was a matter of course. The metal-devouring ant queen did not know how many somersaults in the void before it finally came to a stop. It looked at Yi Shiwen with a somewhat incredulous expression, as if it did not expect that it could not even block a single move. This was already far beyond its initial expectations. It also did not expect that in front of Yi Shiwen, it would be so vulnerable. Originally, I wanted to let you attack first, but now it seems that there is no need. You are too weak. Yi Shiwen's eyes were somewhat contemptuous and disdainful. Yi Shiwen, don't be too arrogant. The Metal Eater royal ant let out a deafening roar. In an instant, its aura engulfed the mountains and rivers, and the sky directly exploded. Its chi and blood pierced through the heavens and the earth, and the sky cracked inch by inch. As the peak of the 6th level, the terrifying strength was released in an instant. Just now, it was caught unprepared by Yi Shiwen, and it almost had a grudge. Now, it finally came to its senses. Yishuwen was not an ordinary person, and it did not dare to underestimate the person in front of it. The metal-devouring ant queen only blasted out a punch, and in an instant, the whole world was moving with its footsteps, and the mountains and rivers were roaring with it. Many people saw this scene and finally smiled and nodded. This was the standard that the metal-devouring ant queen should have. Countless terrifying laws of power all emerged, blessing its fist, giving it an incomparably terrifying attack. You dare to say that I am weak. You dare to say that I am weak. You dare to say that I am weak. The metal-devouring ant queen roared and rushed in front of Yishuwen. You are just too weak. Yishuwen could not help but sneer, and his eyes were incomparably cold. In his hand, the 3,000 great ways condensed into the martial emperor seal, and then turned into an incomparably huge divine mountain. This was the highest mountain in the depths of the divine court, and he stood on this divine mountain, looking down on all beings. Even if I do not use any Tao tools, I can directly blow you up. Aren't you proud of your physical body? Then I will blow your pride up. As Yishuwen spoke, he also blasted out a punch, but it was not the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Eating raw meat and drinking blood. Since you say that the martial arts of the human race are mediocre, I will show you now. He shouted, and directly used the eating raw meat and drinking blood of the Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. The Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist was inherited from Heavenly Emperor Fuxi, and later carried forward in the hands of martial Emperor Yishuwen. It was called the Supreme Divine Fist. Yishuwen had deduced this Supreme Fist technique before, but he already had the 6 paths of reincarnation fist at that time, so he did not put much effort into deducing it. But even so, after so many years, he had already deduced the complete Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. The whole set of Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist had a total of 6 moves, namely eating raw meat and drinking blood. A single spark makes a prairie fire, battle all heroes, world domination, world peace, world creation. These 6 moves were practically carved into the flesh of Heavenly Emperor Fuxi, so its power was even more boundless. Yishuwen only blasted out a punch, and in an instant, a vast scene was blasted out. In the distant past, the ancestors of the human race had eaten raw meat and drank blood. In order to survive, they fought against the heavens, against the earth, against all kinds of demons and monsters. It was a tragic era, but also an era that made people's blood boil. Countless sages of the human race emerged in the fist intent one after another. In an instant, Yishuwen seemed to have received the blessing of countless sages of the human race. The law of power on the Metal Eater Ant Monarch's fist was devoured cleanly in an instant. The Metal Eater Ant Monarch was only fighting with its own tyrannical strength, and was not proficient in fist techniques. The moment the fist intent of both sides collided, it was already clear who was superior. Yishuwen's eating raw meat and drinking blood fist intent crushed everything. Chapter 3154. In an instant, the world where the life and death arena was located had become like the ancestral land of the human race. The battle cries of the human race's sages could be heard everywhere. Everything was within the scope of the struggle. In an instant, the Gold Eater Ant Queen's fist intent was swallowed up completely, leaving nothing behind. What a strong fist intent! What a powerful fist technique! Many emperors could not help but be shocked. The former meant that Yishuwen's fist energy was enough to break the world, and his skill had reached a terrifying level. The latter meant that this set of fist technique was amazing. Through this fist, they could almost see the rise of the human race in the distant desolate era. The person who can create this set of fist technique can be regarded as a peerless genius. Has there been such a person in the human race? Could it be Swirenshi? Some people had also heard of the legend of the human race. Although the human race was not considered a powerful race in the Fortune God dynasty, Swirenshi had led the human race to take root in the Fortune God dynasty. It was not all smooth sailing. On the contrary, they had experienced countless battles before they finally won a place for the human race, and finally gained a foothold in the Fortune God dynasty. Regardless of the race, this kind of ancestor-level emperor-emperors often represented extremely terrifying existences. The birth of any race could be said to be blessed by the heavens. These ancestor-level characters often represented extremely terrifying and powerful existences with great luck. No, it's not Swirenchi. Swirenchi's martial arts are widely spread among the human race. They are not in the same system at all. Apart from Swirenchi, there is actually such a person in the human race. No wonder he can dominate a world. There must be a reason. Many people clicked their tongues in wonder. This fist completely changed everyone's view of the human race. Yi Shiwen's fist intent directly shattered the Gold Eater Queen's fist intent, and then collided with the Gold Eater Queen's fist. Bang! There was a loud bang like the collision of gold and iron, and the two fists had already fiercely collided. The Gold Eater Queen was a creature with an extremely terrifying and powerful physical body. It was said to be able to survive in the harshest environment. It was another extreme existence compared to the world annihilation monarch butterfly. This was also the reason why he mainly cultivated the law of strength and was able to unleash his tyrannical physical body to the extreme. Yi Shiwen wasn't inferior in any way. He was constantly cultivating the tyrant body scripture. He had improved it for many years. It was unknown how much more exquisite it was compared to the past. His physical cultivation was the foundation and reliance of everything. So, it was naturally strong enough. Two extremely powerful physical bodies collided. Moreover, they were existences at the Imperial Emperor level. One could imagine how terrifying that terrifying power was. The resulting shockwave seemed like it was going to collapse the world. Fortunately, at practically the same time, the barrier set up by the various experts in the life and death arena was instantly activated. It stopped the terrifying shockwave, and it also stopped the numerous divine chains of laws that fluttered in the sky. Ka-ka-ka. A teeth-aching cracking sound was heard. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Numerous cracks had appeared on the fist of the metal-devouring Ant Emperor. His fist had been smashed open by Yi Shiwen's punch. How is this possible? Everyone finally saw the result of the collision. However, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor was known for its powerful physical body. They had never heard of anyone being able to beat the metal-devouring Ant Emperor like this with their bare hands. It was as if one of its arms was going to be crippled. Just now, Yi Shiwen had sent the metal-devouring Ant Emperor flying with a punch. Now it made them feel even more terrified. The battle of the Sixth Realm had exceeded the level of these Imperial Emperors. Except for Emperor Li, who could still calmly watch the battle between the two sides, the other Imperial Emperors couldn't help but look a little pale, because they were very clear that if the same attack landed on them, the consequences wouldn't just be as simple as a fist covered in scars. Their entire arms would explode. From this point of view, the physical body of the metal-devouring Ant Emperor could already be considered as powerful. Just two moves were enough to completely change everyone's mind. They no longer held the same thoughts as before. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor shrieked and hurriedly retracted its fist in pain. A hint of fear actually flashed through its eyes, because it had never been in a situation where its physical body was at a complete disadvantage in a battle of the same level. If others wanted to deal with it, they would often use their boundless magic power and supreme magical powers to suppress it. Perhaps they might have a chance of winning. However, its usual method was to use one's strength to defeat all and one's strength to break all techniques. It was just a simple method, but it could break all attacks in the world. It had to be said that it was able to become an imperial emperor with the law of power. Moreover, it had reached the peak of the Sixth Realm. It had indeed exerted the law of power to the extreme. In the past, it had never encountered an opponent in this aspect. However, it had now encountered one. Yi Shiwen's fist strength was greater than its own, and its physical body was more tyrannical than its own. It suffered a loss after this punch. It immediately understood that in terms of pure physical strength, it was probably slightly inferior to the person in front of it. It retreated again and opened its mouth. Suddenly, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth turned into a long river, and it was sucked into its mouth. It wanted to rest and buy some time, but how could Yi Shiwen let it go? It threw another punch. A single spark makes a prairie fire. Yi Shiwen used the second move of the Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. A single spark makes a prairie fire. In an instant, the scene of the entire world changed, turning into an endless primordial. The human race began to rise under the oppression of the demons and began to resist. It was like a single spark could make a prairie fire. The countless fist wills around him were like little sparks. In an instant, they all condensed together, and then turned into a mighty force that slammed down on the metal-devouring Ant Emperor. I don't believe that my strength can go against the heavens. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor roared and roared. It activated all the magic power in its body and threw another punch. Yi Shiwen was unforgiving and completely enraged. It wanted to completely shatter Yi Shiwen's legend with one punch and break his prairie fire. It was now at the peak of the sixth realm. It absorbed the spiritual energy between heaven and earth and gathered all the martial power in its body to throw this punch. It was almost close to the terrifying power of the seventh realm. This was its true trump card. It was its confidence. Even with Yi Shiwen's legend, it still had this confidence. Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary person, and he was not ordinary either. Yi Shiwen, I don't believe that I can't kill you today. With power in hand, I can break all the techniques in the world. No one can match me. I will finally achieve perfection. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor roared. Its fist tore the world apart. Endless chaos poured out, containing unparalleled divine power. It tore through the primordial, pierced through the past and the present, and even the river of time was about to be punched out. Boom! A single spark makes a prairie fire directly collided with the metal-devouring Ant Emperor's strength. Almost with a boom, everything between heaven and earth completely collapsed. Everyone held their breaths and opened their heavenly eyes to watch this attack. In that instant, the two extremely terrifying fist intents collided with each other and fought against each other. There was no stalemate like what everyone had expected. Almost in an instant, the outcome was decided in a single exchange. The prairie fire fist intent directly smashed the metal-devouring Ant Emperor's fist intent into pieces. It was like sparks of prairie fire, burning everything into ashes. Bang! The two fists collided directly. It was another direct collision. Poochie! The skin and flesh of the metal-devouring Ant Emperor's fist were directly lacerated. It was not cut by a sharp weapon, but by a powerful force. That terrifying force caused the metal-devouring Ant Emperor's fist to crack open. Immediately after, it directly exploded in an instant. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor's fist was a mess of flesh and blood. Bone fragments flew everywhere. It was just one blow, and it was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen again. This, as expected, they are not on the same level. Finally, even those who were most optimistic about the metal-devouring Ant Emperor didn't have any wishful thinking at this time, because the gap between the two sides was too big. It was so big that it was impossible to make up for it. This Yi Shiwen really defeated the Gongjin Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor at the same time. That shouldn't be a legend. I'm afraid it's true. How can he be so terrifying? Another peerless powerhouse has appeared in the human clan. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor is too far away. The only thing to consider now is how long the metal-devouring Ant Emperor can last. The metal-devouring Ant Emperor suffered losses again and again, and its ferocious nature erupted. Its body exuded endless ferocious energy, and it directly transformed into its original form. It was a huge, ferocious ant like an ancient divine mountain. Its whole body was golden, as if it was cast in gold. It looked majestic. It's useless even if you transform into your original form. Didn't you say that the martial arts of the human clan are not good? Then I'll beat you to death with the martial arts of the human clan. You won't have anything to say. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He just kept sneering. The opponent had transformed into its original form, and its strength was a bit stronger. It might be a problem for others, but it was nothing for him. "Take another punch from me. Fight against all heroes." Yi Shiwen shouted and blasted a punch. The fist intent transformed into countless shadows. They were the many powerhouses that Yi Shiwen had killed and defeated over the years. There were people of various races and forces. Now all of them had evolved. He had already used his own essence of this move and integrated his past into it. It was not inferior to the original at all. This punch directly pierced through the sky and the river of time. In an instant, it had already blasted in front of the metal-devouring Ant Emperor. Bang! Chapter 31:55. Bang! This punch penetrated all the defenses of the Metal Eater Ant Emperor and blasted a big hole in its body on the spot. Blood spurted out like a pillar, and in just a moment, it was already a river of blood. This move of battle heroes was even more terrifying than the Eat Raw Blood, and Prairie Fire made a great fire. This was also the biggest feature of the Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. One move after another, as if history was repeating itself. The power of each move was far more powerful than the previous one. One move after another. And if he were to use it all the way to the last move, then its power would rise to a terrifying level. The Metal Eater Ant Emperor was instantly hit hard, spitting blood and retreating repeatedly. It wanted to avoid Yi Shiwen's attack, but Yi Shiwen would not give it such an opportunity. He almost stuck to it like a shadow. World domination. Another punch crossed the sky, penetrated the barrier of the world, and directly blasted in front of the Metal Eater Ant Emperor. This punch directly hit the Metal Eater Ant Emperor's towering body like an ancient sacred mountain, and it directly flew out. Its huge and tyrannical body actually appeared densely packed with cracks. Under the fist power of this punch, it finally could not hold on anymore. Boom! The Metal Eater Ant Emperor fell hard on the ground, and the entire space of the life and death arena trembled violently. This fist power spread throughout the entire space of the life and death arena before dissipating. Puff! The Metal Eater Ant Emperor spat out another mouthful of blood, and this was not ordinary blood, but essence blood. For any cultivator, essence blood was rare and precious. This mouthful of essence blood was at least tens of thousands of years of bitter cultivation. His eyes were full of fear. At this time, he already understood that there was a huge gap between him and Yi Shiwen, but there was no other way. Once in the life and death arena, it would really be a matter of life and death. This was also the rule of the life and death arena for millions of years. Everyone watching was almost scared silly. The Metal Eater Ant Emperor was really too far behind. No wonder Emperor Li said before that he did not know what was good for him. Looking at his performance, it seemed that he really did not know what was good for him. Everyone's attention was diverted to Emperor Li. Emperor Li was calm and collected, but the shock in his heart was no less than that of the others. Unlike the others who were shocked by Yi Shiwen's amazing strength, he was shocked that Yi Shiwen had become stronger in such a short time. Compared to when he had defeated Tiger Emperor Gungjin and Eternal Saint Emperor, he was much more skillful. His skills had clearly improved. If he had his current strength, he was afraid that Tiger Emperor Gungjin and Eternal Saint Emperor would not have been able to last until the Pantheon Palace appeared. He's improving too fast. Emperor Li muttered in his heart. He remembered that Yi Shiwen had been able to snatch the corpse of the time beast old ancestor from the hands of the Gungjin Tiger Emperor when he had first appeared. However, Yi Shiwen had been able to deal with the Eternal Divine Emperor and the Gungjin Tiger Emperor by himself the next time he had appeared. And now, when they met again, he had actually improved. After sending the metal-devouring Ant Monarch flying with one move, Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. Instead, he punched again. Eternal Peace. Yi Shiwen's punch seemed to have endless power and magic. This punch seemed to be able to create eternal peace. Everyone seemed to see the prosperity of the human clan at a glance. The common people lived and worked in peace and contentment. Compared to the grief and indignation of the first few moves, the feeling of resisting a strong enemy was completely different. Everyone understood that this was not a regression. On the contrary, this was a sublimation of his fist intention. Yishuan was also an existence that ruled over a region in the myriad heavens. He was the leader of all emperors, not only for the human clan, but also for the myriad heavens to quell the turmoil and suppress the source of disaster. As a result, his comprehension of this move, eternal peace, had almost reached an unprecedented level. He had truly unleashed his eternal peace with a single punch, and he had unleashed a flourishing era for all the worlds in the universe. Bang! This punch seemed to have condensed all the fist principles from before, stacking them one by one. Countless fist principle laws carried boundless, terrifying power, turning into endless hurricanes that blasted out. Boom! There was a loud roar, and the metal-devouring ant monarch was completely drowned in the prosperity of this punch. This punch contained the will of all living beings, and it was simply terrifying to the extreme. In this punch, the metal-devouring ant monarch was completely smashed into pieces. The fist intention contains the will of all living beings. This fist technique is so powerful. Many emperors couldn't help but change their expressions when they saw this punch. The martial arts of emperors carried the power of heaven and earth, and the laws of heaven and earth themselves were a matter of course. It was not a big deal, but to be able to carry the will of all living beings in the fist intention, this was not something that ordinary fist techniques could do. It must be possible only when one had truly reached a supreme position. This was the biggest gap between the emperors of the different worlds and the Fortune God dynasty. In many different worlds, even a first realm emperor could rule the world and be invincible. But in the Fortune God dynasty, there were too many experts. Although they were high and mighty, they were not truly invincible. Many people couldn't truly comprehend this kind of invincible might. A terrifying force swept out, and the body of the metal-devouring ant monarch reassembled in the distance. But the luster of its body was not as good as before. In the eyes of everyone, it was clearly at the point of being an arrow at the end of its flight. It had already exhausted all its strength to escape from Yishuan's punch, and it had no other ability. This last punch, I will completely kill you. Yishuan roared. Genesis Splitter. Yishuan roared. In an instant, the world seemed to have transformed into chaos, and he was like a chaos demon god. His body blossomed with endless light, and the principles transformed into divine chains that danced in the air. That terrifying power that could split the world and split the world was thoroughly integrated into his fist. Then he blasted out a punch. Wherever the punch passed by, all the barriers and spaces were destroyed, turning into primal chaos. The punch was meant to bring about a new era of peace and prosperity, to create a new world. Within the fist intent, there was both destruction and rebirth. Stop! A stern shout came from outside the life and death arena, and there was a hint of coldness in it. Someone broke into the life and death arena. Suddenly, an emperor shouted. Almost in an instant, only a figure could be seen flying directly into the life and death arena. Immediately, everyone was stunned. Once the life and death arena was formed, outsiders were not allowed to enter. Otherwise, they would be breaking the rules of the life and death arena, breaking the rules that had existed for thousands of years. Therefore, no one thought that someone would break into the life and death arena. And Yishuan also heard this stern shout, but he obviously didn't take it to heart. The fist intent of this punch did not diminish and directly blasted out. Bang! This punch directly hit the body of the Metal Eater Ant Queen, which had just condensed its body not long ago. This punch contained a boundless and terrifying power of destruction. How could the Metal Eater Ant Queen, whose body was already heavily injured, withstand this punch? In this punch, it was completely turned into ashes, and not a single residue was left. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Yishuan to be able to complete this instant kill with this punch when there was someone else intervening. This time, they completely understood what it meant to be beaten to death. With one punch after another, and a set of fist techniques, the Metal Eater Ant Queen, a top-notch expert at the peak of the Sixth Realm, was actually beaten to death. Even its body was turned into ashes. Just how powerful this set of fist techniques was. No, it should be said that Yi Shiwen himself should be strong to an unimaginable extent. This must be a joke. In the past tens of thousands of years, I've only seen this kind of fist strength by one person. The fist technique is powerful, but the person who used it is even more powerful. Is this still the peak of the Sixth Realm? Even a small magnate of the Seventh Realm is only at this level. Many sovereign emperors couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, suppressing the shock in their hearts. Among them, Star Emperor was a little dumbfounded. He had only heard that Yi Shiwen had become very strong now, and he thought that he had already overestimated Yi Shiwen's strength. Only now did he realize that it wasn't an overestimation, but a complete nadir. This is too strong. After killing the Metal Eater Ant Queen with one punch, Yi Shiwen finally had the time to see who had intervened in his life and death arena. He looked over and saw that it was a middle-aged man. This man's entire body was the color of jade, and he looked like a jade man. How dare you disobey my orders? That jade man was obviously usually high and mighty. Even in the face of other sovereign emperors, he still spoke in a commanding tone. I didn't expect Emperor Yun to get involved. Isn't he afraid of punishment? No one can stop Emperor Yun from doing things. Moreover, have you all forgotten that Emperor Yun's original mission was to hunt down Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen? It was only because of the sudden revival of Pan Tian Venerate that his plan was disrupted, and he was sent to Storm City. It seems a little interesting. Originally, I thought that once this Martial Emperor encountered Emperor Yun, the only outcome would be death. But now, it seems that this is not the case. This Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen is not an ordinary person. He will definitely not give up without a fight. A meaningful smile appeared on Emperor Li's face. I don't know if he could survive this. In his opinion, it didn't matter whether Yi Shiwen could win against Emperor Yun or not. This way, the success rate of the Fortune God dynasty recruiting Yi Shiwen would be much higher. At that time, Yi Shiwen would know how important it was to have a reliable backer. He wouldn't be indifferent to the Fortune God dynasty's recruitment like he was now. There were too many such arrogant heroes. It would be a miracle if they did not suffer a blow. You are that Emperor Yun of Heavenly Taoism? At this time, Yi Shiwen had also heard the discussion of the crowd. He finally understood that the person in front of him was the big shot of Heavenly Taoism who had been sent to hunt him down. That's right. Emperor Yun looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of anger and contempt. Chapter 3156. The Cloud Emperor was angry because Yi Shiwen didn't give him any face at all. In his opinion, this was an unforgivable crime. He was used to being a tycoon, so he was used to taking what he wanted. However, he was still a little happy. It was really like wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find what he was looking for without any effort. Just when he didn't know where to look for Yi Shiwen, and was even troubled by the sudden resurrection of Pan Tian Tian Venerable, Yi Shiwen reappeared, trespassing on the arena of life and death. Do you know what kind of crime this is? Yi Shiwen stood with his hands clasped behind his back and looked at the Cloud Emperor indifferently. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear on his face. I had no choice but to act in an emergency. Do you know that the Pan Tian Venerate's attack is imminent? Moreover, the metal-devouring Ant Emperor is an important battle force that I've spent a lot of effort to find. How dare you kill him without any reason? Could it be that you're a spy from the outer domain who's here to sabotage us on purpose? Emperor Yun's expression grew colder. What an urgent matter. What a big hat. I'm afraid I can't afford to wear this hat. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, Emperor Yun, you barged into the life and death arena for your own selfish reasons. Why? Do you want to compete with me? An ominous look flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to end things in one fell swoop. Why not? Emperor Yun smiled coldly. He was thinking of taking advantage of the situation to kill this mortal enemy of Tiandao sect. Since you've barged into the life and death arena, your life and death are no longer up to you. At this moment, a cold light flashed in Yishuan's eyes. The martial emperor's seal condensed in his hand, and a terrifying aura emerged from his body. It was like a boundless sea as it attacked the Cloud Emperor. The seventh realm. He actually entered the seventh realm. Many people immediately cried out in alarm, including Emperor Li. Only now did everyone understand why the metal-devouring Ant Emperor was not a match for Yishuan. It turned out that he had already stepped into the seventh realm. No wonder the metal-devouring Ant Monarch had died so miserably. It was indeed seeking its own death. No matter how powerful a pinnacle of the sixth realm was, it was only the pinnacle of the sixth realm. How could it compare to a true seventh realm? Sure enough, Yishuan didn't even use much of his own strength to deal with him. Yishuan wasn't comparable to Yishuan at all. Yishuan only revealed his true strength when he encountered the Cloud Emperor. How is this possible? Emperor Li was completely shocked. He thought that he had overestimated Yishuan, but he never expected that Yishuan had already entered the seventh realm. They were on a completely different level. In the Fortune Divine Dynasty, the gap between the sixth and seventh level was like the difference between heaven and earth. One could imagine the gap between a God Emperor and a God Emperor. But as far as he knew, Yishuan should have just stepped into the sixth realm not too long ago. He finally understood that what was even more terrifying than his strength was the speed of his improvement. It was utterly terrifying. Star Emperor was completely dumbfounded. At this time, he finally understood that the two of them were no longer on the same level. Even if they were both in the seventh realm, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. The Cloud Emperor's expression also became slightly dignified because none of the information he obtained mentioned that Yishuan had already stepped into the seventh realm. If it wasn't that the people who collected the information were eating dog *T, then Yishuan had advanced a step further in a short period of time, a step further than the previous pinnacle of the sixth realm. No matter which one it was, Yishuan was not an ordinary person. Boom! Yishuan finally made his move. This time, he didn't act carelessly. Instead, he directly used all his strength. In an instant, the entire space of the life and death arena turned into a cave. Many mountains and rivers collapsed directly. It was like the end of the world. Nothing could stop it. Everything was about to be destroyed. Huge mountains collapsed on the spot. The endless ocean rose and fell continuously. The order of the entire world was in chaos. The power of the laws had completely collapsed. It was as if the lifespan of this world had come to an end. Everything had a lifespan. Even the world would have its day of destruction. It was just that ordinary people wouldn't be able to see that day. Yishuan's attack directly pierced through the sky. This attack blasted out tens of thousands of miles of light and blasted towards the Cloud Emperor. The Cloud Emperor shouted coldly. His figure swayed, and in an instant, he had already dodged Yishuan's attack. Rumble! Yishuan's martial emperor seal smashed onto the ground fiercely. It almost smashed the entire ground into pieces, smashing out a path. At the same time, a long spear pierced straight towards Yishuan. It was thousands of miles long. It traversed the void and blasted directly towards Yishuan's head. Boom! This long spear pierced directly into Yishuan's body. It was only then that it was completely blocked by the time robe that he was wearing. What a fast speed of exchange! Many emperors stared blankly. In just a short moment, both sides had already exchanged blows several times. Such a speed of attack was simply beyond their imagination. Seventh Realm. This was the power of a Seventh Realm expert when he attacked with all his might. A battle of the pinnacle, a battle between supreme experts. Yishuan displayed the law world. He was wearing a green robe and was tens of thousands of miles tall. A long sword appeared in his hand. The Taiyu sword was like a mountain. The tip of the sword swayed slightly, and the power it brought seemed as though it was going to overturn the world. Opposite him, the Cloud Emperor was not to be outdone. The long spear in his hand seemed to have penetrated the river of time. It was tens of thousands of miles long, and it seemed as though the stars in the void were being pierced through one after another. Interesting. Yishuan was not dispirited because his attack did not succeed. On the contrary, The blood in his body was completely stirred up. It was a boundless battle intent. A real battle broke out in an instant. The long spear was like a long dragon. It emitted a shocking cold light and instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. The Cloud Emperor's spear technique was sharp and extremely brilliant. Coupled with his amazing strength, this long spear erupted with shocking power. The spear pierced through the front of Yi Shiwen. Clang! There was a shocking sound of metal clashing. Yi Shiwen was wearing the Dark Bodhi Divine Hand and blocked the sudden attack of the spear. At the same time, his counterattack was not slow at all. The Avicii sword turned into a horrifying Avicii hell world, and it ruthlessly slashed towards the Cloud Emperor. Boom! A terrifying battle broke out. Both sides did their best. All the battles were so shocking and terrifying. The speed of both sides was too fast. Bang! 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 Only shocking shockwaves were left after shocking collisions. They swept in all directions. Even these shockwaves did not have time to rush out and were scattered by the new shockwaves. Everything was in turmoil. Before all the rules were established, they were already shattered. If it wasn't for the fact that this arena of life and death itself was reinforced by a super expert, with the two of them going all out, even the world of stars would have collapsed. Apart from time and space, nothing would be left. If they continue fighting like this, then it wouldn't be possible that even this life and death arena would be unable to endure it and collapse, right? Many people could not help but have such a question. The battle between both sides was too shocking, especially after using the magical power of Law World. Each of them was like a giant that could support the sky and the earth. It shouldn't be. This place has experienced a life and death duel between super experts of the Ninth Realm. There shouldn't be a problem. Some people had cultivated for a long time and had clearly seen more life and death duels in the life and death arena. It's just that I never dreamed that this martial emperor Yi Shiwen could compete with the Cloud Emperor. Moreover, he was not at a disadvantage at all. Did we underestimate him in the past? I'm afraid it won't be easy for the heavenly Taoism to deal with him again. After witnessing Yi Shiwen's strength, everyone understood that it would not be easy for the heavenly Taoism to deal with Yi Shiwen again. The Seventh Realm. This is the power of the Seventh Realm. Sooner or later, I will also step into the Seventh Realm. Emperor Li's fists were clenched unconsciously. Today's events had given him too much stimulation. He had originally thought that he could only be on an equal footing with him, but in the end, he had been left far behind. This could not be said to be a kind of irony. He had entered the heavenly palace to find a chance to step into the Seventh Realm. In the end, he had not yet stepped into the Seventh Realm, but Yi Shiwen, a latecomer, had stepped into the Seventh Realm one step ahead of him. The battle between both sides was still fierce. As time passed, not only did the attack power of both sides not decrease in the slightest, but it also gradually increased. The speed of the battle between both sides was faster. Even if everyone had opened their heavenly eye, they could only vaguely see some of the battle. They could only judge what was happening from the situation of the space of the life and death arena constantly collapsing. Under the powerful barrier rules, the space of the life and death arena was constantly being destroyed and reshaped. Looking from afar, it was as if the scene of the beginning of chaos was constantly being repeated. Various rules turned into divine chains that devoured each other, exploding the sky in the chaos. Just when everyone was worried whether the space would collapse from the impact, the butterfly sovereign suddenly returned. When he saw that the two were already fighting, he was a little anxious. At this time, the enemy is right in front of us. Both of their strengths are top-notch. They are our main forces. Why are they fighting? However, with his strength, he could not intervene at all. He could only watch as the battle between both sides became more and more intense. Chapter 31:57. The entire space of the life and death arena was constantly being destroyed and reborn. The enormous chi and blood soared into the sky, causing the entire space to tremble. Emperor Yun's eyes were as frightening as torches. His body was indomitable and no one knew how many tens of thousands of miles tall he was. The power of the seventh realm was vividly reflected in his body. He could catch the sun and the moon with a lift of his hand and crush mountains and rivers with a stomp. Opposite him, Yishiwen's aura wasn't inferior in the slightest. His body was like a pillar that supported the heavens. Countless laws on his body transformed into divine chains that danced chaotically, covering the entire world and turning it into his divine kingdom. Boom! The two sides collided, and the entire space of the life and death arena was shaking. The shaking space shocked many sovereign emperors who were watching the battle from outside. A long spear was directly in front of Yishiwen. It pierced through the entire void and went straight for Yishiwen. Such an attack could even directly penetrate a real sovereign emperor. However, Yishiwen was not in a hurry. He raised his hand to block it, and the terrifying power shook his chi and blood crazily. He did not know how many times such an attack had happened in the battle just now. How could he not be prepared? On the contrary, his attack ended in a blink of an eye. A sword aura gushed out from his hand and turned into a torrential river that slashed down towards Emperor Yun. In that instant, Emperor Yun hurriedly withdrew his spear to block. Clang! His arm was trembling slightly. The Cloud Emperor frowned slightly. Yishiwen's strength had reached an unimaginable level. Every time they collided, the Cloud Emperor's heart and blood would surge, and he would feel uncomfortable. Originally, even an expert with a strong physical body like the Metal Eater Ant Emperor was defeated by Yishiwen. He did not take it to heart. After all, Yishiwen's realm was higher than his. Now, it seemed that it was ridiculous. He was under the control of Yishiwen even though they were in the same realm. Outsiders might think that he could contend with Yishiwen, but it seemed that they were almost on par. However, he had to reserve 20% of his strength for defense when they really fought. On the contrary, Yishiwen could go all out without any misgivings. He gradually began to feel strenuous under this situation. What was even more terrifying was that he clearly felt the growth of Yishiwen's strength. Yishiwen had just stepped into the seventh realm and had not yet fully grasped his power. As the battle continued, his strength gradually increased, and the result was that he was suppressed. Yishiwen's rate of progress was really frightening. One could clearly feel his progress in the same battle. At this time, he had begun to understand why they had failed to capture Yishiwen so many times. The speed of the experts they had sent couldn't keep up with Yishiwen's progress. Awesome, ha! Yishiwen looked up to the sky and laughed. The sword in his hand was as thick and long as a mountain. It danced in his hand and slashed towards the Cloud Emperor. Bang! 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 The long sword and the long spear collided in the void. Every time they collided, a shock wave of tens of thousands of miles spread out in all directions. However, it was quickly annihilated under the space enchantment of the life and death arena. Yishiwen's strength was increasing almost every moment. The feeling of bursting out with all his strength was really too good. He hadn't even used 50% of his strength in the battle with the metal-devouring Ant Emperor. He was still far from it. But now, he could go all out without worrying about accidentally killing the Cloud Emperor. The Cloud Emperor was simply a live target. His mysterious space was still constantly deducing. He improved while fighting. Only he could do such a thing. The longer he fought, the more he grasped. He's still improving. Emperor Li, who was outside the arena, was stunned to discover this. He almost thought that he had sensed wrongly. How could this be possible? However, the more he watched, the more he realized that he was right. He could faintly feel the Cloud Emperor's aggrieved feeling. All of his attacks were being suppressed. From the scene, he could see that the rhythm of the battle seemed to be taken away by Yishiwen. The other monarchs soon realized this as well. Although they were not strong enough, they still had a good eye for things. When the situation became more and more obvious, they finally realized this point. Everyone was stunned and completely shocked. They didn't expect that Yishiwen not only had no pressure when fighting against the Metal Eater Ant Queen, but even when facing the Cloud Emperor, he could still gain the upper hand. It was funny that many people were tempted to take the bounty from the heavenly Taoism. Now that they thought about it, it was really stupid. It was not a contest of the same level at all. Yi Shiwen's attack frequency was getting higher and higher. Every attack was in harmony with the heavenly Taoism. Every attack could borrow the power of the world. His strength was huge to an incredible extent. The Cloud Emperor kept retreating. His hands were faintly numb. He had no choice but to withdraw more strength to defend. Gradually, he realized that he didn't even have the strength to counterattack. He only had the strength to parry. No, I can't continue like this. The Cloud Emperor quickly realized that he couldn't continue like this. He was already forced to retreat by Yi Shiwen. If this went on, he was afraid that he would be defeated. Roar! The Cloud Emperor looked up to the sky and roared. The long spear in his hand carried an indomitable and powerful momentum. With the endless blood boiling in his body, the spear smashed the mountains and rivers. Even the stars in the depths of this space were directly blown up. One spear to rule the world. The momentum of the long spear was actually accumulating. With every step forward, his long spear became stronger. The blood in the Cloud Emperor's body was burning. When it reached in front of Yi Shiwen, the momentum of this long spear had reached an irreversible and terrifying state. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up like a torch. He could already see that the Cloud Emperor clearly wanted to take back the initiative and regain the balance of power. But how could he allow the Cloud Emperor to do so? You want to regain the balance of power? Impossible. The long sword in Yi Shiwen's hand turned into a shocking sword aura. Dominate the world. The sword aura spread. Everything in the world surrendered to him and channeled its own power. One sword could even collapse the sky. Boom! The long spear and the sword aura collided in the sky. Everything was annihilated. Even the sound was lost in this terrifying shockwave. The shockwave traveled faster than the sound and annihilated everything. Everything was so quiet and so terrifying. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's state changed again. An even more terrifying power boiled and swept out from his body. 5 overlapping, fierce waves. Yi Shiwen slashed out another terrifying power and crushed it. The sword aura that was faintly collapsing under the long spear immediately stabilized and even instantly counterattacked. All of this took a long time to describe, but in reality, it had happened in the blink of an eye. The sword light followed the direction of the spear and slashed down, each stronger than the last. It was like a raging wave, layer upon layer. In the end, it had become unstoppable, and no one could stop it. Bang! Another slash. The sword aura directly slashed in front of the Cloud Emperor. At the crucial moment, the Cloud Emperor withdrew his long sword and blocked the sword aura from directly falling on his body. Terror flashed through his eyes. He was horrified to realize that if the sword aura were to land on him directly, he might even be sliced into two. Even so, Emperor Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated continuously. He actually retreated more than 1,000 miles in one breath. The outcome was decided. All the emperors who were watching the battle had already come to a conclusion. Although the Cloud Emperor had tried his best to resist, he was obviously not a match for Yi Shiwen. The Cloud Emperor had entered the 7th realm many years ago, but he was still not a match for Yi Shiwen. He seemed to be slightly weaker. As time passed, this advantage slowly turned into an extreme disadvantage, just like the current situation. Especially the last slash, it could be said to be earth-shattering. If it were them, they would definitely not be able to resist it and would only be cut in half. And this was Yi Shiwen's true strength. Yi Shiwen destroyed the Cloud Emperor's attempt to regain the balance of power in one fell swoop. He was about to attack again when he suddenly felt that the entire space was trembling. This trembling didn't come from the inside, but from the outside. Not only him, but many emperors also felt the change at the same time. In the sky, there were countless foreign creatures flying above. The foreign creatures are attacking. This thought suddenly flashed in everyone's mind, and their expressions changed. Impossible. There is a barrier around Storm City. How can it be discovered when someone is right in front of us? A emperor blurted out in disbelief. Then he realized that it was too stupid to say such words at this time because there was no point in saying such words at this time. Let's go. At this time, these emperors did not dare to stay and quickly flew out. They could not let these foreign creatures break the barrier on the city wall, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Stormwind City was huge, it was still just a city. How could it defend against the invasion of an entire region's creatures? As long as the barrier on the city wall was not broken, there was still hope. Otherwise, even these emperors would not be able to survive under the overwhelming attack of the foreign creatures. Huff, huff. The Cloud Emperor kept panting and suddenly felt that he was saved. Yi Shiwen did not continue to attack, but only looked at him coldly, and then stepped on the conveyance light and left the life and death arena. He breathed a sigh of relief, but soon his eyes were filled with incomparable anger. Yi Shiwen's eyes were clearly looking down on him, and he did not take him seriously. He was clearly saying, "What can you do if I let you go?" He looked coldly at Yi Shiwen's back, and then stepped on the conveyance light and left the life and death arena. Chapter 31:58. The invasion of the Outer Realm was imminent, and Yi Shiwen could only give up on attacking Emperor Yun. Emperor Yun's strength was tyrannical, and his skills were extremely strong. Yi Shiwen had just broken through to the 7th realm, and his accumulation was not deep enough. At most, he could suppress him, but it would not be easy to kill him. Now, he definitely could not care about killing Emperor Yun, and he did not have the time. For him, it did not matter at all whether he killed Emperor Yun or not. In the battle, just now, he had completely shown off his power. He had killed the chicken to scare the monkey, and his original goal had been achieved. It was even more effective than killing the Gold Eater Ant Queen. As the saying goes, when a nest is overturned, there will be no eggs left intact. Once Stormwind City was breached, it would be difficult for him to leave even with his strength, because there were not only Emperor King level masters here, but there were also Emperor King level masters in the Outer Realm. Looking from afar, a large number of creatures from the Outer Realm rushed over, covering the sky and the earth. The desolate aura shook the earth, and it turned into a torrent, directly rushing down. At this time, many of the formations in Stormwind City were also completely activated at the same time, and a terrifying torrent of energy swept out, sweeping into the army of creatures from the Outer Realm. With one attack, it was unknown how many creatures from the Outer Realm were killed. Under the attack of these overwhelming creatures from the Outer Realm, even with Stormwind City's defense, it was in danger. Many Emperor Kings had already made their moves, and they also understood the principle of interdependence when the lips are gone, so they did not dare to hold back. Yi Shiwen also joined in, turning into a giant. His palm was like the clouds in the sky, and he slapped hundreds and thousands of creatures from the Outer Realm to death on the spot. Although these creatures from the Outer Realm were tyrannical, in front of Yi Shiwen, an Emperor King who had already entered the 7th realm, they were not enough. "Let me fight you." At this time, a loud roar came from afar, and a huge figure leaped over, but it was also a huge figure with a single horn on his head and a long snake wrapped around his body, looking extremely mighty. His hair was messy like weeds, and his eyes were like copper bells bursting with cold light. He opened his mouth and let out a clear roar, directly shattering the sky, and the blood in his body surged like a raging wave. This one-horned giant took the lead and smashed through countless barriers all by himself, almost turning everything into dust. This was an extremely terrifying Imperial Lord. Unicorn Saint Emperor? How could it be him? Hiss. Back then, he followed Pantheon to conquer the world and ruled the Tempest Sea region. Who knows how many sins he committed? Everyone said that he was killed by a powerful existence. Now, it seems like it's simply a joke. Someone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was obvious that they had heard of this giant's origins. The Unicorn Saint Emperor rushed over with large strides. He held a giant demon subduing pestle with both hands and slashed down with it. The pestle was like a silver hymn that could confuse one's mind. This pestle alone was enough to shatter a world. Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. He He punched out, and his fist energy turned into a huge 6 paths reincarnation. The entire reincarnation rotated at an astonishing speed and crushed everything in its path. The endless attacks were all absorbed into it. Bang! The demon subduing pestle and Yi Shiwen's fist collided on the spot, forming a terrifying shockwave. The power of both sides was enormous to the extreme. They could capture the sun, moon, and stars with just a lift of their hands. It was extremely terrifying. What? He took my demon's subduing pestle with his bare hands? The Unicorn Saint Emperor was a little dumbfounded. Yi Shiwen could take his Dao tool with his bare hands. He couldn't help but be shocked. Demon subduing pestle is only SOSO. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and didn't stop at all. His figure shot out like a mass of golden light. It was indestructible. His body was the most terrifying weapon. No one could stop him. He punched out again. The fist energy smashed the sky and blasted towards the Unicorn Saint Emperor again. The Unicorn Saint Emperor was furious when he saw Yi Shiwen devaluing his Dao tool. He was extremely furious. He let out a long roar and brandished the demon subduing pestle in his hand. In an instant, the holy light shone brightly. It illuminated him like a supreme ruler. Rip! Yi Shiwen punched out, and the holy light was torn apart by his fist energy. Then, Yi Shiwen blasted the demon subduing pestle again. Clang! There was a huge roar. The sound of metal colliding reverberated. It was supposed to be an earth-shattering sound. However, it was mixed with countless fighting and killing sounds. It was no longer eye-catching. Buzz! The Unicorn Saint Emperor suddenly felt his arm trembling. His palm was on the verge of breaking. How is this possible? With my cultivation at the peak of the 6th realm, I should be invincible unless I encounter a powerhouse of the 7th realm. With his strength, he could be regarded as the peak of the 2nd rank under Pantheon Venerable. As long as he didn't encounter a powerhouse of the 7th realm or above, there wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, in Storm City, there are only a few powerhouses of the 7th realm or above. They were all intercepted by their own experts. It should be impossible to encounter them. However, this exchange gave him a creepy feeling. Could it be that he had encountered a powerhouse of the 7th realm or above? However, reality didn't give him much time to think about this. This was because Yi Shiwen had already rushed over. Yi Shiwen stepped on a golden light that filled the sky and punched out again. There was a hint of hesitation on the face of the Unicorn Saint Emperor. He had suffered a little from Yi Shiwen's attack just now. However, he couldn't use the demon subduing pestle to resist. If he did that, Yi Shiwen's astonishing fist strength would probably pierce through him. In short, he couldn't take it or not. The initiative wasn't in his hands. Instead, it was on Yi Shiwen's side. Ever since he started cultivating, this was the first time he had such a feeling. It was the feeling of being led by the nose. He couldn't decide whether he lived or died. Clang! There was another shocking collision. The flesh on the palm of the Unicorn Saint Emperor burst open on the spot. In an instant, his entire palm was badly mutilated. In another collision, he suffered a great loss, and his hands felt numb. How was this possible? This is impossible. The Unicorn Saint Emperor couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen could resist his demon subduing pestle with his bare hands. However, why was he the one who suffered a loss in this collision? His palm was about to shatter, but nothing happened to Yi Shiwen. How tyrannical is his body? What kind of physique is this? Is it possible for a human to have such a physique? This is even more exaggerated than some of the races that are famous for their tyrannical bodies. At least, he had never seen anyone who could resist his demon subduing pestle with their bare hands and make him suffer a loss. Again, Yi Shiwen followed up and punched the demon subduing pestle again. Bang! The Unicorn Saint Emperor's palm that was holding the demon subduing pestle exploded on the spot. Yi Shiwen's strength was too astonishing. Even the metal-devouring Ant Emperor, who was also known for its strength, didn't fare well against Yi Shiwen. In fact, it was even killed by Yi Shiwen's punch in the end. Let alone the Unicorn Saint Emperor. His body wasn't bad and could be considered tyrannical. However, it wasn't enough in front of Yi Shiwen. Buzz! Yi Shiwen created a big hand and grabbed the demon's subduing pestle on the spot. The unicorn Saint Emperor's hands exploded. He couldn't stop Yi Shiwen at all. The tool spirit in the demon's subduing pestle struggled to escape from Yi Shiwen's hand. However, it was only for a moment. Soon, a seal word formed in Yi Shiwen's hand and smeared on the demon subduing pestle. At this time, the demon's subduing pestle quieted down. It couldn't display much of the demon's subduing pestle's power because it hadn't been refined yet. Even if it was refined, it couldn't display 100% of its power because it wasn't the original owner. However, this was enough. Yi Shiwen wanted to borrow this kind of power. After grabbing the demon subduing pestle, Yi Shiwen immediately smashed it towards the unicorn Saint Emperor. This pestle shattered heaven and earth and annihilated all living things. Although Yi Shiwen couldn't display the demon subduing pestle's power, its power was much stronger with Yi Shiwen's strength. The unicorn Saint Emperor never dreamed that one day his demon subduing pestle would become his fatal talisman. However, both of his hands had been exploded by Yi Shiwen just now. He hadn't recovered yet, so how could he resist? He could only use his arms to form a parry posture. However, it was useless. A bang sound was heard. Both of his arms turned into two clouds of blood mist under the demon subduing pestle's astonishing attack. Then, a violent sound of space being torn apart was heard. Yi Shiwen was brandishing the exorcism rod in his hand. It seemed as if he was self-taught. He had automatically comprehended a set of brilliant rod techniques. Then, the rod fiercely struck the one-horned Holy Emperor's chest. Bang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. Then, the one-horned Holy Emperor's chest was completely flattened. His chest was about to burst open. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying, crashing into the alien creatures behind him. In an instant, those alien creatures turned into a mist of blood as if they had been hit by a meteor. Those who weren't sovereign emperors wouldn't be able to withstand even a single blow from such a terrifying collision. Puff! The unicorn Saint Emperor continuously vomited blood. His eyes were filled with fear. The demon subduing pestle in Yi Shiwen's hand had displayed astonishing power. It only took one blow to send him flying. You overestimate yourself. Yi Shiwen leaped up and rushed out of the barrier. He attacked the unicorn Saint Emperor and smashed the demon subduing pestle in his hand. Boom! A mushroom cloud slowly rose. The unicorn Saint Emperor turned into a cloud of blood mist under this terrifying attack. His spirit was destroyed. Chapter 31:59. At this time, after Yi Shiwen wiped out this peak 6th realm expert with a single blow, no one could stop Yi Shiwen from advancing forward. With his level 7 cultivation, even though he hadn't reached the peak, he was already extremely terrifying. It was difficult to meet a worthy opponent. When the demon subduing pestle swept out, it was like a mountain sweeping out, causing the world to tremble violently. Thousands of foreign creatures were smashed into powder by his attack. They simply couldn't resist Yi Shiwen's attack. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen was invincible and extremely brave. No one could stop him at all. Although the demon's subduing pestle in his hands did not have its original power, it was still accurate to use it to smash people. It did not take long for Yi Shiwen to clean up the area around him. No matter how many foreign creatures came, they were all wiped out by him. At the same time, behind him, many magical powers suddenly turned into many incarnations. It was not difficult at all to wipe out the ordinary cannon fodder. Many foreign creatures were alarmed by Yi Shiwen's invincible bravery. They did not dare to move forward at all. However, just because they did not pay didn't mean that Yi Shiwen would not go deeper. Holding the demon subduing pestle, Yi Shiwen directly killed his way into the army of foreign creatures, annihilating thousands of them. Roar! At this time, a vicious beast with blood-red fur all over its body roared. It leaped from the sky and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. I will stop him. This ominous beast opened its mouth and said. Then, it directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Stop me? Yi Shiwen sneered as he looked at the first realm emperor-level creature in front of him. The demon's subduing pestle in his hand made a piercing sound as it fiercely smashed towards this fierce beast. Boom! With a loud roar, the demon's subduing pestle almost smashed the head of this fierce beast. Its entire body was smashed away, blood splattered, and bone fragments swirled. Boom! This fierce beast's body was smashed away, crashing into the endless army of foreign creatures, and was instantly seriously injured. This newly enlightened emperor-level creature obviously did not have time to show its brilliance before it was directly smashed to death by Yi Shiwen's pestle. Roar! The ferocious beast was still howling at the sky as it struggled to get up. However, the martial emperor seal descended from the sky and smashed into the beast almost instantly. Boom! Another mushroom cloud rose, and this first realm emperor-level creature was instantly smashed into smithereens. Its primordial spirit was completely destroyed, and it swept away a large group of foreign creatures around it, directly sweeping out an uninhabited area of thousands of miles. Many foreign creatures were terrified when they saw this scene. This was simply a monster. Even an emperor-level creature, had been killed in 2 moves. If it had been anyone else, they would have probably died in groups. Apart from this, there was no other result. At this moment, there were horrifying sovereign emperors wreaking havoc everywhere on the battlefield. Although it was such a terrifying battlefield, there were many experts on both sides, and no one knew how many there were. However, only imperial emperors were able to roam the world. Many sovereign emperors from both sides went on a killing spree on the battlefield. Unless they encountered other experts who were also sovereign emperors, no one could resist them. Even so, there were still very few people like Yi Shiwen who were invincible. Most imperial emperors would be attacked by other imperial emperors after wreaking havoc for a period of time. It was impossible for them to be truly invincible. In the distance, Cloud Emperor saw Yi Shiwen sweeping in all directions, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. Then, he snorted coldly and began to fight. As he fought, he recovered. His fight with Yi Shiwen just now had caused him some internal injuries. He was sure that if he continued to fight, he would inevitably be defeated. The battle became even more intense. The 2 major forces of Storm Sea region joined forces to uproot Storm City in one fell swoop and drive out the forces of the Fortune God Dynasty. The frenzied killing was happening all the time. On the side of Stormwind City, many people were protecting the home that they had lived in for generations. They were even more frenzied. In addition, many ancient matrices were being activated. All of them swept through the void. For a moment, the entire situation was in a deadlock. Suddenly, a figure flew over from afar and directly killed his way into the army. With a maniacal laugh, he began to kill wildly. Wherever he passed, the experts of the Fortune God Dynasty were defeated. They couldn't even withstand a single move from him. This situation was similar to when Yi Shiwen killed his way out. He was invincible. It was difficult to meet a worthy opponent. In the distance, Star Emperor, who was not far away, went to meet him. In less than 10 moves, he was beaten down and suffered serious injuries. Dying! The figure laughed loudly and directly slapped down with his palm, intending to kill Star Emperor on the spot. Although Star Emperor was already very strong, the difference between him and the newcomer was obviously too great. They were not on the same level at all. Suddenly, just as he was about to succeed, a big hand reached out and grabbed Star Emperor, saving him from this fatal blow. Boom! The attack missed and landed on Stormwind City below. In an instant, the entire Stormwind City shook violently. The power of that attack could pierce through a world, but it was blocked by the barrier in the end. Just when Star Emperor thought he was going to die, he found that he was saved. As a result, he saw that the person who saved him was none other than Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist," Star Emperor said after spitting out a mouthful of blood. In this short period of time, his complexion was much better. At this moment, the powerful recovery ability of an Emperor Realm Emperor was vividly reflected. Therefore, In order to kill the Emperor Realm Emperor, he must continuously attack. Otherwise, the Emperor Realm Emperor would soon recover, and everything that he had done before would become meaningless. It's no big deal. It's just a piece of cake. Yishiwen smiled slightly. He didn't think much of it, but he looked at the figure that was rushing forward. On the other side, the figure saw that his prey had been rescued by someone else. He couldn't help but be furious. When he looked in that direction, he suddenly roared like a wounded beast. His eyes bloomed with coldness that was even colder than a poisonous tongue, and he suddenly flew over. Yishiwen, I must kill you. This person was none other than the Gung-Jin Tiger King, who had suffered a great loss in Yishiwen's hands. At this time, his strength had not only recovered to its original state, but it had also advanced to the 7th realm. He had become a big shot among the Emperor Realm Emperors. Otherwise, Star Emperor wouldn't have been seriously injured in less than 10 moves. Martial Emperor, be careful. This Gung-Jin Tiger King is stronger than the rumors say. Star Emperor couldn't help but remind. Although he knew that Yishiwen seemed to have defeated the Gung-Jin Tiger King before, the Gung-Jin Tiger King in front of him was many times more powerful and terrifying than he knew. I understand. He's just a defeated opponent. There's nothing to be afraid of. That day, he and the Eternal Divine Emperor joined hands, but they couldn't do anything to me. Today will be no exception. Yishiwen was motionless like a boulder. He didn't retreat. Although he didn't know what the Gung-Jin Tiger King had encountered during this period of time, he was actually able to step into the 7th realm. It should be known that Emperor Li, whose strength was similar to his, was only at the peak of the 6th realm. He hadn't been able to make a breakthrough in these hundreds of years. However, it didn't matter because he had also stepped into the 7th realm. He had nothing to be afraid of in the same realm. Defeated opponent? Yishiwen's words made the Gung-Jin Tiger King's eyes turn even colder. Yishiwen's words were equivalent to slapping him in the face and exposing his scars. How could he not be angry? Yishiwen, I'll make sure you die without a burial place today. On the body of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, there was a golden aura surging. The endless Gung Metal Chi turned into a terrifying sword light, shooting out one after another. In an instant, it was unknown how many boundaries in Stormwind City had been destroyed. Yishiwen wasn't to be outdone. He released the 3,000 Great Daos completely. Each of them turned into a terrifying Great Daos incarnation and slaughtered the foreign creatures that had followed the Gung-Jin Tiger King. In this confrontation between the two sides, it was like the silhouettes of two terrifying giants. Everyone couldn't see their true faces. They could only vaguely see a pair of peerless and extremely sharp eyes. Both sides were facing each other from afar. However, their magical powers were killing the experts of each other's camp. At this time, the Gung-Jin Tiger King took the lead and attacked. A terrifying fist energy shot out. The heaven and earth were shaking. He was the first to attack. I want you to die, the Gung-Jin Tiger King roared. Countless Gung-Jin Chi burst out of his body. The blood in his body was like raging waves, rolling and surging. His eyes were like a pair of ice-cold eyes. Previously, he was defeated by Yishiwen and was almost killed. This was the greatest humiliation of his life. Now, he came here in anger to wash away this humiliation. This was the anger of a 7th realm Emperor Lord. It made the heaven and earth lose their color and the battlefield feel gloomy. Boom! This fist energy was unparalleled. Do you think this is enough? Yishiwen roared. A loser will always be a loser. So what if you've broken through to the 7th realm? In the face of the Gung-Jin Tiger King's fist, Yishiwen also blasted out a punch. This punch contained the power of heaven and earth. It was like a galaxy was being driven by him. It was deafening and boundless. It felt like a world was being punched out by this punch. In the face of the Gung-Jin Tiger King, Yishiwen didn't flinch. He wasn't afraid of him. He fought force with force and met force with force. Obviously, he was just a human with flesh and blood. However, Yishiwen's punch was like a celestial body. It was enough to turn the entire starry sky into a cave. It was like a peerless ruler was angry. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist glowed with a brilliant golden color. The Gungjin Tiger King's fist also glowed with the color of Gungjin. The two finally collided. Chapter 3160. The colors of the attacks of the two men were like brilliant legends. That terrifying light swept across and spread out in circles. Even an emperor like the Star Emperor had to circulate his martial power to resist it. Those below the level of Emperor were blown away. Those below the level of Quasi-Emperor were turned into ashes on the spot. Those below the level of Emperor were just like ants under the attacks of these experts. Thump, thump, thump. A series of heavy footsteps were heard. The arms of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor were trembling. He retreated a few steps before he managed to stabilize his body. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was shocked. He had never expected that he wouldn't be able to resist a single attack. His arms were trembling. It was telling him how terrifying that attack was. He might have broken his arms on the spot if he hadn't chosen to resist the attack head-on at the critical moment. He had chosen to retreat a few steps instead. Impossible. How is this possible? My body is the Gung Metal origin. My body should be the best in the world. It's invincible. It's impossible for me to be injured by someone in the same realm. His eyes were cold and stern as he roared angrily. This wasn't the first time that he had fallen into a disadvantageous position in a fight with Yi Shiwen. They had fought a total of 3 times. During the first fight, Yi Shiwen's realm and martial power were far inferior to his. However, he still couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's strength had somehow increased later on. However, he had fallen into a disadvantageous position that time. Most importantly, he and the Eternal Heart Divine Emperor had joined hands to defeat Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, he would have perished there if the Pan-Heavenly Palace hadn't coincidentally emerged. This was a humiliation that he would never be able to wash away in his life. This was the 3rd time they had fought. They were at the same realm. However, he had suffered a loss in the first fight. How could he accept this? His worldview had collapsed. Yi Shiwen stood firmly in the void. His eyes were like candlelight. They were able to see through thousands of miles. He had also made a breakthrough recently. However, the gap between him and Tiger Emperor Gungjin hadn't shrunk. On the contrary, it had widened. Although they were both in the 7th realm, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was slightly inferior to the Cloud Emperor, let alone Yi Shiwen. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was able to completely suppress the Cloud Emperor. And now, he was fighting the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor using his best physical strength. How could this not be a piece of cake? The best? They're just blowing their own trumpets. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He was standing on top of a ray of light. His martial power was constantly gushing out from his body. This was the might of a 7th realm expert, making it impossible for others to get close to him. Even the Cloud Emperor, who was in the distance, had a strange look on his face. Initially, he was very happy when he saw that the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor had also entered the 7th realm. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was definitely not an ordinary person. If it was him, he wouldn't have the confidence to defeat it. As for killing it, that was even more impossible. Unless the difference in strength was too great, the possibility of killing a sovereign emperor of the same realm was too low. He thought that he would be able to see a fierce battle between Yi Shiwen and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. It would be great if both of them were injured. If that was the case, he would be able to clean up the mess. To him, Yi Shiwen was a must-kill target for the Heavenly Tao. The other Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was also one of the top wanted criminals of the Fortune God Dynasty. If he could kill him, the Fortune God Dynasty would reward him handsomely. It would be best if both of them died together. However, after just a few moves, he realized that it wasn't that simple. Yi Shiwen was stronger than he had imagined, but the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor wasn't as tyrannical as he had hoped. So useless, Cloud Emperor couldn't help but curse. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor had a great reputation in the past few years. He was said to have the potential to step into the 9th realm in the future. In the end, he couldn't even deal with a mere Yi Shiwen. However, he had selectively ignored the fact that he had been completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen, who had just made a breakthrough. Blowing your own trumpet? The gung metal tiger emperor's expression turned even colder and uglier. Yi Shiwen, don't be arrogant. My clan is not something you can look down on. My clan is invincible in the world. It will never be defeated by me. Yi Shiwen frowned. The gung metal tiger emperor had a clan? This was something he didn't know before. From the tone of the gung metal tiger emperor, it seemed that the other members of his clan were also invincible in the world. However, it didn't matter to him. Unless a heavenly venerate level expert appeared, it would be impossible to kill him. Invincible in the world? Humph, I'd like to see how much strength you have. I won't attack you for now. I'll let you recover. Use whatever secret technique you have. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was calmly looking at the gung metal tiger emperor. What did you say? The gung metal tiger emperor was seething with anger. Yi Shiwen's contempt made him even angrier. It seemed as if Yi Shiwen didn't regard him as a strong opponent in the same realm. Instead, he regarded him as a stepping stone to sharpen himself. In other words, he was an insignificant existence. He, the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, had been born in this world for so many years and had made a name for himself. It wasn't only because he had an invincible master, but more importantly, he had also made a name for himself. He had never been afraid of anyone in the same realm, let alone losing to anyone. However, he had suffered several defeats in the hands of Yi Shiwen, and couldn't even find the words to counterattack. Looking at Yi Shiwen's appearance, he knew that Yi Shiwen was neither arrogant nor conceited. Instead, he was calm and indifferent because he had an absolute psychological advantage over him. Because of this, he couldn't accept it. What did Yi Shiwen think of him as? Was he really a whetstone? Yi Shiwen, you will regret this. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor immediately calmed down. For him, this was an excellent opportunity. If he had continued to fight with Yi Shiwen, he would have been beaten to death. Now, he had to seize the time to adjust and kill him in one fell swoop. He had to kill him by hook or by crook. At that time, the inner demon that had formed in his heart would be destroyed. In that case, it was not impossible for him to enter the 8th realm in a short period of time. Taoist Martial Emperor, this monster is vicious and cunning. You must not let him recover. The Star Emperor hurriedly reminded. He had just exchanged a few moves with the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor and was severely injured. He knew how powerful the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was. If he was allowed to recover at this time, the consequences would be unimaginable. It doesn't matter. No matter how powerful he is, he can't escape from my grasp. The more powerful he is, the more he can sharpen my fighting spirit. Invincible willpower needs to be tempered by such a powerhouse. Yi Shiwen faintly said. He had become increasingly aware of the importance of willpower after his cultivation had reached this stage. He could accomplish some things by hook or by crook to defeat an enemy. However, that wasn't everything. He also needed to defeat a strong enemy in a straightforward manner without any fancy tricks. Invincible willpower needed to be tempered by an invincible opponent. For so many years, the opponents he had encountered could be said to be stronger than the strongest. There were countless masters from all sides, but they were all defeated by him one by one. This was also why he was able to stand out from the crowd in the end, break the shackles of the Great Path, and become the second person in tens of millions of years to truly break the shackles of the Great Path and achieve the way. It wasn't a coincidence, nor was it opportunistic. It was true strength. His strength was tyrannical, and his mentality was even more tyrannical. You don't need to be so careful when dealing with him. Yi Shiwen faintly said, Yi Shiwen, you will regret this. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor understood that Yi Shiwen was using him as a complete whetstone. The stronger he was, the greater the effect would be for Yi Shiwen. Just like how he wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in order to eliminate his inner demons and quickly cultivate to the 8th realm, Yi Shiwen was also using this method of defeating the strongest powerhouse to temper his willpower and his great Tao. Through this method, he could become stronger, shorten the cultivation time, and get closer to the 8th realm. The methods used by both sides were different, but the effect was obviously similar. Both had their own Tao. He had used this method before. However, he had been in a strong position like Yi Shiwen. He had never been a whetstone. Didn't you want to use me as a whetstone? I will grind this knife of yours until it breaks. The gung metal tiger emperor's expression became colder and colder. He pinched a seal, and a seal appeared on his forehead. This seal was engraved with a mysterious light. This is the martial power that I had accumulated to break through to the 8th realm in the future. It seems that I will have to use it in advance. You have forced me to this step, so I can only say that it's time for you to die. The seal on the gung metal tiger emperor's forehead gradually unraveled, and a vast power flowed into his limbs and bones. Boom! A majestic power surged out from the gung metal tiger emperor's body. It was a power that could make people tremble in fear. Then, the gung metal tiger emperor moved. A dragon rose, and a phoenix fell, and directly attacked Yi Shiwen. He had already used his strongest power, and his figure tore through the sky. Are you ready to die? Yi Shiwen opened his eyes. In an instant, the world seemed to brighten up. There was a terrifying power surging in his eyes. The surging gung metal chi disappeared without a trace in an instant. His black hair was disheveled and fluttering in the wind. His skin seemed to be flowing with gold, emitting a dazzling light. Not to be outdone, he also charged out. Both sides attacked at the same time. There were no fancy magical powers or martial arts. They used their own strength to determine the winner. Chapter 31:61. Boom! Both sides fiercely collided in the void. Both sides were like two huge stars that collided on the spot. In an instant, divine light overflowed in all directions, turning into wisps of ripples that then rushed out horizontally. It was like the scene of the creation of the world, sweeping out an astonishing shock wave. This explosion and collision was not over yet, and the two sides collided again. The collision between the two sides was the simplest. They condensed their great Tao together and integrated it into their fists. They punched out fiercely, and a casual punch could shatter a galaxy. The power was so great that the void completely collapsed under the fist light. Boom, boom, boom. This battle was very intense. It was rare to see a terrifying existence that had already stepped into the 7th realm on the battlefield. It was even rarer to see one fighting so crazily. On the battlefield, many people's gazes were attracted by it. 7th realm. Is this the terrifying existence of the 7th realm? Fortunately, their target is not us. Many emperor lords were stunned, and those quasi-emperors and god-kings could not see clearly at all. They could only see the battle between the two sides like a dazzling sun, shrouding the sky and earth. In just a short period of time, the two sides had already exchanged more than 1,000 moves. Many people thought that Yi Shiwen was too arrogant at first. The gung metal tiger emperor's combat power had soared a lot, but even so, he could not gain an advantage against Yi Shiwen. Both sides were actually evenly matched. Boom! After another collision, the two sides suddenly separated, and the two figures finally appeared in front of everyone. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back, calm and composed. The series of fierce battles just now did not seem to affect him at all. On the contrary, while fighting, he was still evolving his own great Tao, deducing more profound great Tao. Anyway, he still had 5 level 2 dragon veins in his body. Even if he was deducing all the time, it was not a problem for him. On the other hand, the 7th Metal Tiger Emperor wasn't falling into a disadvantageous position in the battle. However, he was already gasping for breath. His facial expression wasn't as calm as Yi Shiwen's. He was overdrawing his vitality and the accumulated power of the seal. Yi Shiwen's body was overflowing with divine light, like a big sun, becoming more and more vigorous, like the sun in the sky. The gung metal tiger emperor began to gradually decline. Is this all you've got? It's really disappointing. Yi Shiwen faintly said, I wanted to use you as a whetstone, but now it seems that you're not qualified. The gung metal tiger king's face turned even uglier. In his eyes, he wasn't even qualified to be a whetstone. That's impossible. I've clearly used all of my strength, overdraft my potential, and entered the seventh realm. How could I still be inferior to him? This is impossible. He was roaring in his heart, unwilling to accept this reality. He was abused in the sixth realm, and he was abused in the seventh realm. Many Emperor Lords almost fainted when they heard this. The seventh realm Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was already an unattainable and powerful existence in their eyes. However, in Yishuan's eyes, it was not even qualified to be a whetstone. You've already done your best, but I haven't. As Yishuan spoke, many laws emerged from his body and directly turned into 3,000 martial arts. With him as the center, a martial arts divine kingdom was formed. Whoosh! He took a step forward, and, at the same time, his fist evolved into the 6 paths of reincarnation. With a terrifying fist force, he directly bombarded the Gung Metal Tiger King. The Gung Metal Tiger King didn't dare to hesitate. This wasn't an arena, but a battlefield. He looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. Bang! An incomparably loud explosion resounded, and the boundless laws dispersed. The void was shattered into pieces. It was like a star exploding, dazzling, gorgeous, and extremely dangerous. Just when everyone thought that it would be a draw again, they heard the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor scream in pain. The Tiger Emperor retreated several steps before he managed to stabilize his body. His entire arm was trembling, and it was densely covered with cracks. Blood was seeping out from the cracks. His entire arm was dripping with blood, and it looked incomparably ferocious and terrifying. How is this possible? Many people were shocked because they knew how terrifying the Gung Metal Tiger King's body was. How could Yi Shiwen injure the Gung Metal Tiger King's arm to such an extent with his bare hands? With the Gung Metal Tiger King's physical strength, he shouldn't have ended up like this even if he had used his bare hands to take on a Dao tool. Could it be that his fist was even more terrifying than a Dao tool? The Gung Metal Tiger King continuously gasped in pain. His physical strength could be said to be the best in the world, and it wasn't easy for him to get injured. Therefore, once he was injured, the pain would be unimaginable. The Gung Metal Tiger King's martial power has declined. This kind of trump card is just a trump card. It can't be sustained for a long time. He has already reached his limit. The gap between their strengths is too big. Even if he erupts his full potential, he still won't be able to face Yi Shiwen. I didn't expect this martial emperor Yi Shiwen to be so strong. He is more than 10 times stronger than the rumors. No, it's not that my martial power has declined, but that the opponent has become stronger. The Gung Metal Tiger King's heart was in turmoil. Outsiders could only see that he wasn't at his peak. However, he could clearly see that Yi Shiwen had become stronger. The strength of his fist had increased significantly. Even if this had completely subverted his worldview, he had to admit that Yi Shiwen's strength was still growing. How is this possible? I don't believe it. The Gung Metal Tiger King refused to believe it. However, Yi Shiwen didn't give him any buffer time to think. The divine kingdom of martial arts instantly expanded. In a flash, it seemed as if it had transformed into an army of martial arts. It directly smashed the divine kingdom of Gung Jin Tiger Emperor into pieces, pierced through it, and enveloped his body. Yi Shiwen's figure also flew over in an instant. In an instant, he was already in front of the Gung Metal Tiger King. It was also a simple punch. However, it contained the supreme truth of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It went straight towards the Gung Metal Tiger King's face. The Gung Metal Tiger King raised his hand to block with all his strength. However, he only heard a dang sound. It was like the sound of metal colliding. It didn't seem like a collision between flesh and blood. Instead, it seemed like 2 pieces of steel had collided. Puff! The Gung Metal Tiger King spat out a mouthful of old blood. His entire body was instantly sent flying. He couldn't even stabilize himself. His face was pale, and cold sweat was flowing down his back. His arm had also been smashed by Yi Shiwen's punch. His flesh and blood flew everywhere. In an instant, both his arms had been severely injured. Such injuries couldn't be said to be light. At this moment, he He finally understood that face was nothing compared to life and death. If he couldn't survive, he wouldn't have the opportunity to wash away his shame. The moment he was sent flying, he took advantage of the situation and fled far away. He directly turned into a beam of light and fled towards the depths of the camp of foreign life forms. You want to leave? The gung-metal Tiger King's speed was very fast. It was like a sword light piercing through the vast sky. However, Yishuan was even faster. He almost instantaneously moved and chased after the gung-metal Tiger King. In such a chaotic battlefield, even an Emperor Lord wouldn't dare to casually tear the space. It was too chaotic. The backlash caused by it could seriously injure an Emperor Lord. The chaotic cracks in the space could even injure the flesh of an Emperor Lord. However, Yishuan didn't care. His understanding of the power of space had already far surpassed the vast majority of people. He casually tore the space apart and chased after the gung-metal Tiger King. It wasn't known when a demon subduing pestle had appeared in his hand. The pestle fiercely smashed down. It seemed as if the world would be torn apart in an instant. Bang! A muffled sound of collision reverberated in all directions. The gung-metal Tiger King was directly smashed, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were ruptured by this attack, and his entire body was covered in cracks. Blood spurted out, making him look like a man made of blood. Fortunately, another pestle ruthlessly smashed down at the same time. This time, the gung-metal Tiger King couldn't hold on any longer. He fell down and directly smashed into the endless deep sea. He forcibly ignited the blood essence of his entire body. He wanted to flee far away. He might die if he delayed any longer. He had never thought that he would face such a situation one day. This was even more tragic than the last time he had joined hands with the Eternal Divine Emperor. However, he had been severely injured by Yishuan. No one could help him this time. Many foreign creatures rushed over from afar. They wanted to stop Yishuan's footsteps. They wanted to buy time for the gung-metal Tiger King to escape. You're overestimating yourself. The Avicii sword appeared in Yishuan's hand. Every pore on his body was emitting sword chi. It turned into an endless sword chi storm and violently shot out in all directions. Puff, puff, puff. Countless foreign creatures were hit by the sword in an instant. Their bodies exploded one after another and turned into a mass of blood mist. Their primordial spirits were destroyed. Hundreds and thousands of foreign creatures were killed. They couldn't even stop Yishuan. The disparity in strength between the two sides was too big. It was useless even if they used numbers to make up for it. I'll send you to hell with this sword. I'll settle this grudge. Yishuan shouted. The Avicii sword in his hand suddenly grew bigger and bigger. It turned into an ancient mountain in an instant and pierced into the distance. Bang! The gung-metal Tiger King was pierced by the sword. His speed of escape was extremely fast. However, it couldn't be compared to the speed of the Avicii sword chi. His entire body exploded, and his primordial spirit was destroyed in an instant. Even an Emperor Realm expert would die in the face of such an attack. Suddenly, Yishuan realized that he had rushed forward a bit, and a terrifying thought had firmly locked him in place. Chapter 3162. That huge and terrifying thought had arrived in an instant. It seemed as if it had crossed the Milky Way from the distant universe. Although it was far away, Yishuan could still feel the terror of this thought in an instant. And this consciousness did not seem to have any intention of hiding, nor did it need to be hidden. It had a domineering aura. That terrifying consciousness became stronger and stronger, approaching from afar. Almost in an instant, it had become so huge that it made the sky tremble. Soon, a figure with a tyrannical will appeared on the battlefield. It was a majestic figure, and just the aura that he exuded seemed to be able to crush the heavens. As soon as he appeared, the world seemed to have fallen into darkness, forming a terrifying dark divine kingdom. Yi Huang, Yishuan said slowly, looking at the person in front of him with a solemn expression. This was Yi Huang, one of the 10 great emperors of the Fortune God dynasty who had betrayed them. Back then, Yi Huang was already one of the 10 great emperors of the Fortune God dynasty, only below a few great heavenly masters, and could be called a peerless expert. Later, after defecting to the Stormy Sea region, he was also treated as a distinguished guest. Soon, he recruited a large number of subordinates and successfully established a foothold in the Stormy Sea region. In the Stormy Sea region, he was also a giant existence. His appearance instantly silenced the entire battlefield, especially the Stormwind City's side. They were completely dumbfounded. This was simply too frightening. When Yi Huang was still in the Fortune Divine dynasty, he was already awe-inspiring and had outstanding military exploits. After defecting to the Stormwind Sea region, he had established an immortal prestige. Everyone had heard of his deeds. Thinking of his appearance here, they couldn't help but feel that their future was bleak. An existence of that level alone could destroy an army, destroy countless worlds, and pacify a chaotic world. It was not an exaggeration to say that one person was enough to destroy Storm City. If Storm City had not been reinforced by generations of heavenly masters, Yi Huang could have sunk the entire Storm City into the deep sea with one hand. Even the many sovereign emperors were completely terrified. They felt a chill run down their spines. They were all sovereign emperors, but the difference between them was too great. Those above the 7th realm could still put up a fight, but those below the 7th realm could not resist the Night Sovereign at all. Under such circumstances, the appearance of Yi Huang was undoubtedly the most terrifying news. Impossible. How could this be? Why would Yi Huang suddenly appear? Many people were in disbelief. There were countless experts in the Tempest Sea region, and there was no lack of frightening existences at the 9th realm. However, the Eastern region was not to be trifled with. The 9th realm experts there were not weak either. Those famous experts should have already been watched. Otherwise, the Battle of the Arch wouldn't have left Storm City to attend to other matters with peace of mind. Now that Yi Huang had suddenly appeared, it meant that there was a huge loophole in their inspection system. That was the scariest part. A person who could change the outcome of the battle had appeared. Stormy Wind City, which had already been caught off guard by the various Stormy Sea region's major factions and Pantheon Venerate, fell into despair. Is Stormwind City really going to be eradicated today? That's impossible. I don't believe it. In the past, Stormwind City had encountered situations that were 100 times more dangerous than this, but it had never fallen. Today is no exception. Oh no, Martial Emperor is in danger. Star Emperor's eyes widened. He had just recovered from the serious injuries caused by the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Now, he saw an even more terrifying existence. Most importantly, Yi Huang was the master of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. It could be said that he had watched the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's growth. Now, Yi Huang must be furious and wanted to kill someone. Yi Huang just stared at Yi Shiwen. The corner of his mouth raised into a cold smile. His eyes were filled with extreme anger. One could see that he was suppressing his anger. Originally, when one cultivated to that level, it was basic to not show one's emotions. However, at this time, he was thoroughly enraged by Yi Shiwen. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was regarded as his last disciple. He had great significance to him. However, he had died at the hands of this human. This made his heart burn with anger. You know me? How dare you kill my disciple? Not only will you die today, but I will also exterminate the entire human race in the future. Yi Huang said coldly. He had the confidence to say such words. With his strength, it wouldn't be difficult for him to annihilate the human race. After all, they were just a second-rate race. It wouldn't be difficult for them to face someone of that level. Old thief, I killed your disciple today. I will go and collect my reward first. I will kill you in the future and exchange your head for the reward. The corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth revealed a slight sneer. He was not moved. Damn it! Yi Huang's expression instantly changed. He directly slapped Yi Shiwen, who was in front of him. However, Yi Shiwen directly turned into a mass of vitality and disappeared. What a good spirit incarnation! Yi Huang was so angry that he laughed. He did not expect that he would be tricked by a junior. He was actually played by a trick in front of him. He did not even realize that a spirit incarnation was in front of him. This was a slap to his face, a ruthless slap to his face. "Let's see where you can escape to," Yi Huang said. His eyes turned into a pattern of endless darkness. Wherever his gaze passed, nothing could be hidden. In an instant, the vast world was taken into his eyes. Then he saw Yi Shiwen, who had spread his demon's wings in the distance, frantically fleeing in the direction of Storm City. "You want to leave?" Yi Huang shouted. "Aren't you very arrogant? Why don't you dare to stop?" "Do you think I'm stupid?" Yi Shiwen said. He naturally fanned the demon's wings behind him crazily. In just a moment, he was already in the sky above Storm City. However, behind him, a big hand was chasing at an even faster speed. In just an instant, it had already caught up and directly slapped Yi Shiwen's body. Bang! It was a loud bang. The time robe on Yi Shiwen's body suddenly appeared and blocked most of the attack. However, the remaining terrifying power still completely shook Yi Shiwen's body. Puff! Yi Shiwen spat out a mouthful of blood. He only felt that his internal organs were about to be spat out. His entire body was about to completely collapse. In an instant, his figure crashed down like a meteor. Boom! Yi Shiwen's crash directly destroyed the buildings within a radius of 1,000 miles. In the pit, Yi Shiwen struggled to get up and immediately sat cross-legged. The Mingxin ancient tree emerged behind him, and there was a faint image of a divine phoenix resting on it. It was the divine phoenix's origin that he had condensed using the phoenix regeneration technique. It was usually hidden in his body, and it could quickly heal his injuries when needed. It was just that the number of times he had been injured was really limited. Therefore, there were very few opportunities to use it. However, he knew that it was very necessary. There were not many people who could threaten him. Just a few would be enough to make him suffer. As this divine phoenix integrated into Yi Shiwen's body, the injuries on his body also rapidly recovered. He finally had the energy to think about other things. Yi Huang's attack was indeed terrifying. However, it was still unable to penetrate the time robe. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed that the injuries that Emperor Primordial Chaos had inflicted on him were even more serious. Although it couldn't be said that Emperor Primordial Chaos was definitely stronger than Yi Huang, he was at least a top expert of this level. He might even be an invincible heavenly master level expert. However, such a terrifying existence was trapped on the path of creation. What exactly was on the path of creation that attracted countless heavenly masters and emperors to continuously head there? Around him, many thoughts swept over. Many people originally harbored evil intentions. However, when they saw that he had recovered so quickly, they immediately dispelled the desire to cause trouble. What kind of joke was this? Yi Shiwen had almost collapsed from that blow just now. However, that was the Night Emperor. If it had been them, that blow would have completely destroyed their spirit. It was already very impressive that Yi Shiwen could survive. Yi Shiwen's life was already very impressive. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's own combat power was also very amazing. What kind of person was the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor? In the end, he still died in Yi Shiwen's hands. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen's recovery speed was so fast that they completely dispelled the idea of having any tricks up their sleeves. It seems that there are quite a number of people who have designs on me. Yi Shiwen continued to swallow the divine phoenix's origin as he healed himself. He couldn't help but sneer. However, he didn't make a move. This wasn't the time to make a move, and there was also no need to make a move. Above him, Yi Huang's true body had already flown above Storm City. Countless Storm City's formations were awakened by this powerful aura. All kinds of attacks swept towards Yi Huang. However, these attacks were all around Yi Huang and were blocked by his divine kingdom. They couldn't even get close to him, let alone anything else. More and more powerful magic arrays were being revived. Due to the suddenness of the situation, many of the magic arrays were not able to be revived in time. It was unknown how many years these ancient magic arrays had existed, or how many tens of millions of years they had been buried without being used. If they wanted to revive, they would need many conditions and a long time. Right now, they had to delay these peak experts. Yi Huang said indifferently, "Break into Storm City. Leave no one alive. Kill them all." His words caused many savage creatures to roar out in excitement, especially since Stormwind City had existed for who knew how many years. The wealth it possessed was enough to make people's eyes red with envy. Conquering Stormwind City was enough to let every power make a fortune. Yi Huang looked down coldly. His gaze passed through the layers of space formations and directly swept over Yi Shiwen's body, locking him in place. The hatred of killing his disciple was absolutely irreconcilable. Yi Huang stomped his foot, and the entire continent where the city was located rumbled and shook. It was as if an earth dragon was turning over and the sky and earth were turning upside down. It had the power to destroy the world. Chapter 3163. The entire Storm City looked like it was going to sink when a Ninth Realm Martial Emperor made his move. Everyone could feel the terrifying power spreading. In an instant, countless boundaries were destroyed. This was the most terrifying power. He didn't need to use any martial arts. Just his ordinary physical attack was enough to defeat everything. Is this Yi Huang, one of the 10 great emperors of the Fortune God dynasty? Yi Shiwen raised his head and stared at Yi Huang. A thought emerged in his mind. Sooner or later, I will also reach such a level. Heaven and earth will have to submit to me. Although he knew that there were legendary heavenly venerables above the 10 great emperor lords, the power that Yi Huang, one of the 10 great emperor lords, possessed was already very terrifying in the eyes of ordinary people. It was far stronger than ordinary Ninth Realm emperors. After entering the 7th realm, Yi Shiwen's strength had increased significantly. He was confident that even if he encountered an ordinary Ninth Realm martial emperor, he could escape unscathed. At the very least, he wouldn't die. However, an expert like Yi Huang was enough to kill him. This power was far stronger than many experts that Yi Shiwen had seen before. Apart from Pantheon Tianzuan, only Emperor Hunyuan could be compared to Yi Huang and pose a real threat to Yi Shiwen's life. Thinking that there were so many experts in this world, Yi Shiwen felt that his blood was boiling. This was the real world for a real man to gallop in. Being severely injured by Yi Huang didn't make him lose confidence. On the contrary, it made his blood boil. There were too many experts in this world, so many that he wanted to increase his strength as soon as possible to compete with them. Other than Yi Huang, who was an invincible expert, there was also a Battle the Arch on the Storm City side. That was an old senior who had already shaken the world countless years ago. Compared to the Battle the Arch, Yi Huang was just a junior. Yi Shiwen guessed that Yi Huang must have found out from somewhere that the Battle Emperor had left Storm City. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to attack. Yi Shiwen didn't know if Yi Huang was a match for the Battle Emperor. However, he knew that the Battle Emperor could at least fight to a draw with Yi Huang. If the Battle Emperor was here, Yi Huang wouldn't be able to defend Storm City even if he led thousands of troops. Unless there was an expert on the same level as Yi Huang, ordinary Emperor Realm experts would be powerless in front of Stormwind City's defenses. If they couldn't even defend against this level of attack, then Stormwind City, the Fortune Divine Dynasty's only nail in the coffin, would have long been uprooted by the Stormwind Sea region. In other words, there was a second super expert like Yi Huang. If that was the case, the consequences would be even more terrifying than the first guess. Although people of that level were rare and few in number, it wasn't impossible to find them in the Stormy Sea region. For example, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor Patriarch had appeared some time ago. Yi Shiwen analyzed many possibilities in his mind, but there was no other way. Although his strength was enough to change the balance of power on the battlefield, but in the face of a war between two major forces, it was simply not enough, unless one day he also stepped in the Ninth Realm. Then it would be possible. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen didn't think too much. He would wait for things to really happen before making a decision. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took a moment. Yi Shiwen's injuries recovered to their original state. The recovery ability of emperors was remarkable. They were basically unkillable, unless it was beyond the limit of their recovery ability. Yi Shiwen flew up into the sky and joined another battle on the spot. This time, he didn't launch a surprise attack. Even if Yi Huang wanted to deal with him, he wouldn't be able to hurt him in one go. By the time Yi Huang rushed over, Yi Shiwen had already escaped. After a while, Yi Huang gave up on this plan. This time, he came to kill Yi Shiwen only to avenge his personal grudge. His real goal was to uproot Storm City. Soon, Yi Huang flew high above the entire Storm City. He alone blocked all the sunlight, and no one could see anything. It was as if they had suddenly entered the night. In this endless darkness, many cultivators of the Fortune God dynasty fell into a blind spot. Many powerful deities couldn't even see through this darkness, even if they opened their magic eyes. This was not ordinary darkness. How could ordinary darkness affect them? This was a kind of magical power, a supreme magical power. It was said that when Yi Huang was still in the Fortune God dynasty, he represented the Fortune God dynasty to attack the Stormy Sea region. He had used this kind of divine ability and almost single-handedly covered the entire Stormy Sea region. Under this kind of divine ability, the foreign sea creatures in the Stormy Sea region suffered heavy casualties. "Open!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. His eyes suddenly opened and turned into a double pupil. He directly pierced through the darkness. This kind of magical power had a great impact on low-level cultivators. Moreover, it had a very wide range. It was a very terrifying and very practical skill for an army. For a top expert like Yi Shiwen, it didn't affect him much. But even so, the entire defense line of Storm City fell into chaos because of the darkness. It was no longer as imposing as before. It wasn't difficult to break this move. As long as they defeated Yi Huang, they would be able to do it. At the very least, they had to be able to interfere with him. If the Battle Emperor was here, it might not be a problem. Unfortunately, the Battle Emperor wasn't here. It was easier said than done to stop Yi Huang. It could even be said that it was impossible. They could only passively take a beating. Yi Shiwen could clearly see that a spear had appeared in Yi Huang's hand. This spear was pitch black in color. It looked like a ferocious beast of darkness. It was exuding an extremely frightening and fierce aura. Dark Emperor Spear. A sovereign emperor master recognized the aura of this fierce spear. According to the rumors, it was forged from the ferocious souls of many dead emperor-level creatures and the extraterrestrial pure gold. It was born with great power. According to the rumors, it's a terrifying Dao tool that can kill a powerful sovereign emperor with one spear. In the past, many foreign creatures died tragically under this Dark Emperor spear. I didn't expect that it would be used against us now. Many sovereign emperors felt sad. At the same time, they felt a burst of chills on their backs. Even though these sovereign emperors hadn't seen the horror of the Dark Emperor spear with their own eyes, they had more or less heard of its existence. It was no joke that such a terrifying weapon could kill a sovereign emperor with one spear. And at this moment, Yi Huang finally moved. The Dark Emperor spear in his hand directly pointed out like lightning. The spear pierced through the sky and the earth. Wherever it passed, the entire battlefield collapsed on the spot. Everything between the heavens and the earth turned into chaos. Under this spear, there was no vitality, only dead silence. The shadow of the spear dragged a shadow of tens of thousands of miles in the sky and fell on Storm City in one fell swoop. Rumble. With an incomparably terrifying roar, the Dark Emperor spear directly pierced into Storm City. The boundary, which hadn't been broken even under the siege of countless armies, suddenly had a big hole. The terrifying power caused the volcanoes on the entire continent where Storm City was located to erupt and the mountains to collapse. Everything was shaking violently. The terrifying power caused countless residents in the city to die tragically. Oh no, the boundary is broken. Everyone was stunned and frightened. Although there were many barriers left behind by many experts in Storm City, there was only one main barrier, which had been personally arranged by the Eastern Venerate in the past. All these years, no matter how dangerous the attacks had been, it had never been broken. A large part of the reason for this was because of this barrier. But now that the barrier had been breached, the fall of Stormwind City was inevitable. What should we do? Is it really going to be broken? Many people were scared silly as they looked at the hole that had appeared in the sky. If the boundary was broken, then the consequences would be dire. Over the years, there had been countless battles between Storm City and the Storm Sea region. Countless ancestors of both sides had died at the hands of the other side. The deep hatred could not be resolved. Kill everyone in Stormwind City. Countless foreign creatures of the Storm Sea region roared and rushed into the hole. Several Emperor-level creatures took the lead and rushed to the front of the group. At this time, an astonishing sword chi fiercely slashed down from the void. In an instant, the foreign creatures that had rushed in were all destroyed and turned into ashes. The Emperor-level creatures were also seriously injured and were sent flying. They had been seriously injured in an instant, and it was unknown how many years of cultivation they had lost. It was really a case of extreme joy turning to sorrow. They wanted to cry, but had no tears. A figure turned into a Dharma idol that filled the sky. It was like a stabilizing force that firmly stabilized the situation. It was a thin old man dressed in a green robe. He looked so old that it seemed as if a gust of wind could blow him away. Behind him was a pair of colorful wings that could tear apart the sky and shatter the galaxy. This is the five-colored winged lord. Some knowledgeable people immediately recognized the person when they saw the figure. However, a long time had passed, so long that they couldn't recognize the person at first glance. This was a person who had once shaken the world. He had once been an influential figure of an era. It's the five-colored winged lord. Great, we are saved. Many old antiques exclaimed after confirming the identity of this person. They felt as if they had just escaped from death. Chapter 3164. Very soon, many of the younger generation finally knew who the five-colored winged monarch was. He was an invincible imperial monarch whose name shook the world in the past, and his cultivation was so great that no one could match him. Later, he gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Some said that he had passed away, while others said that he had ascended to the human realm beyond heavens in search of a chance to survive. As time passed, no matter how great his reputation was, it would be forgotten by people. Very soon, as the five-colored winged lord appeared less and less, those who still knew of his reputation gradually became old antiques. Among the new generation, there were very few people who knew of his existence. So it's you. Yi Huang's expression became colder and colder. His eyes seemed to contain the birth and death of heaven and earth, and he was constantly brewing the laws of the great Tao. That's right, Yi Huang. I never thought that we would meet again. The five-colored winged lord spoke slowly. His voice was a little hoarse and old. I really didn't expect that. Has the injury from that spear healed? Yi Huang said indifferently. Everyone was in an uproar. They weren't stupid, so how could they not guess that the injury caused by the spear that Yi Huang mentioned should be the injury caused by him using the Dark Emperor's spear? Could it be that they had fought before? Very well. Don't worry. The five-colored winged lord said indifferently. Among those who attacked my clan's holy land, you were ranked last. I never thought that one day you would become one of the Fortune Divine Dynasty's 10 great emperors. I never thought that you would betray the Fortune Divine Dynasty and go to the outer domain. Yi Huang laughed and said, This is all thanks to your clan's deep foundation. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's a pity that you took the World Annihilation Monarch Butterfly's egg. If I'm not wrong, it should be in Stormwind City. It will fall into my hands eventually. It's good that you're still alive. I'll kill you as well. Many of the emperors were in an uproar. They more or less knew about the World Annihilation Monarch Butterfly. Wasn't it the Butterfly Sovereign, the disciple of the Battle Emperor? They didn't expect the Butterfly Sovereign to have some relationship with the five-colored winged lord. And Yi Huang had his eyes on the Butterfly Sovereign. If the Battle Emperor was included, he had been surrounded by many experts since his birth. No wonder he could enter the Emperor realm so quickly. I remember now. According to the ancient legends, the five-colored winged lord was a peerless emperor that only appeared once every 1,000 years in the five-colored monarch butterfly race. He almost single-handedly brought the five-colored monarch butterfly race to unprecedented heights, and he was the leader of all butterfly races. His power was almost comparable to the power of the world annihilation monarch butterfly when it ruled the world in the primordial era. Unfortunately, before this race could reach its peak, it was exterminated by someone in a single night. Their sacred land was destroyed, and the five-colored winged lord disappeared from everyone's sight. It was said that he passed away in meditation, but it seems like that's not the case. One of the old antiques slowly explained what he knew. The many imperial emperors all had grave expressions. They all knew very well how important the holy land of a race was. It was almost the last hope of a race. Once the holy land was breached, the race would be exterminated, and there would be no future to speak of. This was just like how Mount Bujo was to the human tribe. If Mount Bujo was captured, then the human tribe would be exterminated. The remaining scattered people would be nothing more than slaves of a vanquished country. They would have no status outside and could only work like cattle or horses for others. Moreover, Yi Huang had actually participated in all of this. Many people were very puzzled. Exactly what happened all those years ago? What did Yi Huang obtain from all of this to actually become one of the 10 great imperial monarchs in one go? After all, not all experts at the 9th level had the qualifications to become one of the 10 great imperial monarchs, and only the strongest and most outstanding amongst them had a trace of possibility. It probably involved some kind of incredible ancient secret. It won't be that easy to kill me, the five-colored winged lord said coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. When Battle Emperor returns, it will be the day you die. You are the number 1 super traitor of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Ha ha ha. Old man, do you think I would come here without any preparation? Battle Emperor can't even take care of himself now. So it would be strange if he could come back. Even if Battle Emperor comes, I might as well say it directly. In fact, I'm not a creature of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. I'm a creature from the outer domain. I severed my great Tao and cultivated again to become a spy in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Unfortunately, I was accidentally discovered by that person. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to betray the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Yi Huang laughed heartily and revealed a secret that shocked everyone. No wonder Yi Huang, as one of the 10 great emperors, had a high status in the Fortune Divine Dynasty, second only to a heavenly venerable. Moreover, he was only a step away from becoming a heavenly venerable. He could break through at any time and truly become the ruler of heaven and earth. With such a noble status, it was unreasonable for him to betray the Fortune Divine Dynasty and flee to the Stormy Sea region. Now, he finally understood that Yi Huang was actually a spy and had been discovered by someone else. The Fortune Divine Dynasty's higher echelons must have known about this long ago, but they had never announced it to the public. Once it was announced, it would be a huge blow to the Fortune Divine Dynasty's prestige. It was a great humiliation to be able to become one of the top 10 emperor monarchs as an undercover agent. If it wasn't for them accidentally discovering his background, the Fortune Divine Dynasty's authority would have fallen into his hands, and at that time, the Fortune Divine Dynasty might have been overthrown in secret. Therefore, even a powerful emperor didn't know about this matter. Yi Huang didn't care if this news was leaked. To him, this was a good thing. He could attack the Fortune Divine Dynasty's prestige. So that's how it is. The five-colored winged lord's expression grew colder. That's even better. I have more and more reasons to kill you. Kill me? Oof. You're just an old dog that lost its home. Yi Huang didn't care about the five-colored winged lord at all. In fact, he was the one who had planned everything in the past to obtain the World Annihilation Royal Butterfly's egg. It was a pity that he didn't achieve his goal in the end. However, he had obtained great benefits, and his cultivation had leaped to become one of the 10 great emperors. Yes, an old dog that lost its home. But even an old dog that lost its home has the ability to bite. The five-colored winged lord laughed self-deprecatingly. His originally cloudy, eyes suddenly became clear and filled with hatred. His clan was annihilated, and only he managed to escape with the World Annihilation Royal Butterfly's egg. Even so, he could only conceal his identity because that person was too powerful. He was one of the 10 great emperors of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. It wasn't until he betrayed the Fortune Divine Dynasty that his life became a little better. Kill, kill, kill. In an instant, endless battle cries rang out. Many foreign creatures rushed in again, but the five-colored winged lord had no intention of attacking again. Instead, he flew directly towards Yi Huang in the sky. The five-colored wings on his back flapped slightly. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. It turned into a terrifying force that blasted towards Yi Huang. It's just a small trick. Compared to back then, you haven't improved at all. But I'm different. I couldn't do anything to you back then, but now I can kill you with one hand. The corner of Yi Huang's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He suddenly stepped on a ray of light and directly collided with the five-colored winged lord. Rumble. The attacks from both sides turned into terrifying shock waves that spread out in the void. In an instant, countless foreign creatures and the boundary of Stormwind City were turned to ashes by the attacks. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. They directly flew up to the 9 heavens and started fighting in the galaxy. Both of them used the magical power of Law World to transform into giants. They were like pillars that supported the heavens and the earth. With every raise of a hand or a raise of a foot, stars would crumble in their hands. The Night Emperor's spear seemed to be able to overturn the universe, and the sharpness of the spear's tip could shatter countless stars. The five-colored wings on the five-colored winged lord's back flapped slightly, and the world shook as well. An extremely terrifying power spread into the boundless universe. The two of them were fighting far away from each other. In the end, it did not affect the battle below. The foreign creatures roared and rushed in through the huge hole that had been blasted by the Dark Emperor's spear. In an instant, the entire defense of Stormwind City was in chaos. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky. He held a demon-subduing pestle and killed thousands of foreign creatures with a single strike. Yishuan took the lead and rushed into the battlefield. Soon after, the other sovereign emperors also joined the battle. Although there were not many of them, they were all peerless experts. They were like pillars of support, forcibly blocking this flood of foreign life forms. Just like a dam, all the foreign creatures that collided with the dam would have their heads smashed and bleed, and they would turn into clouds of blood mist. There was no other outcome. Kill. We must not let them break through the defensive line. Wait for the Battle Emperor to return. Kill. Count me in. At this moment, the others finally reacted and rushed forward. At this moment, no matter what grudges they had to put them aside. In the face of the danger of Stormwind City being breached, their previous grudges were nothing. Once Stormwind City was breached, their fates would undoubtedly be miserable beyond belief. Now that the space outside Stormwind City was isolated, no one knew how long it would take for reinforcements to arrive. They could only fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Everyone in Stormwind City roared in unison. In this battlefield, Yi Shiwen, who was blocking the front, was quickly targeted by others. Chapter 3165. Yi Shiwen stood in front of the broken enchantment and began a massacre. His body seemed to transform into thousands of clones as he wiped out hundreds and thousands of foreign creatures. He was invincible. Under the attack of these foreign creatures, he was the mainstay of the attack, blocking the foreign creatures' sudden attacks. Apart from him, there were other Emperor-level creatures on the front line. At this time, these high and mighty Emperor-level creatures could not continue to sit in the back in command. This was because if there were no Emperor-level people to resist, the other quasi-Emperor and God Kings would not be able to resist at all. Not to mention the fact that there were Emperor-rank life forms mixed in with this army. Without them to resist, the entire defensive line would collapse in an instant. If that was the case, It would be meaningless for the five-colored winged lord to delay Yi Huang, drive them out, and repair the enchantment. This was the only thought left in everyone's mind. This was also their only way out. No one wanted to die here. The more this was the case, the more they could not be afraid of death. Yi Shiwen, who was in the seventh realm, was a great killing weapon. With one stab, hundreds and thousands of foreign creatures were turned into ashes. At the same time, countless martial arts turned into thousands of martial arts clones that flew out and attacked in all directions. It was like a meat grinder. The Storm City army behind, Yi Shiwen finally recovered their lost territory bit by bit and regained their advantage bit by bit. Around him, a powerful Emperor-level creature was wantonly killing. The ordinary quasi-Emperor and God Kings could not withstand a single blow at all. Under the attack of this Emperor-level creature, they were completely defeated. The trend of defeat gradually spread towards Yi Shiwen's side. It was a huge, ferocious beast that had directly transformed into its original form. It was a huge, ferocious beast with 10 claws and a body like Mount Tai. No one knew what race it was, but every time it turned its body, it could kill many Storm City soldiers. Although its killing efficiency was not as good as Yi Shiwen's, it was still extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen could not stand its arrogance. He took a step forward, and in an instant, he was already in front of this ferocious beast. The demon's subduing pestle in his hand smashed down on the spot. This ferocious beast was shocked, but it did not have time to react. It only had time to raise one claw and chase after Yi Shiwen's demon subduing pestle. Bang! The ferocious beast's claw was smashed by Yi Shiwen in the air. The demon's subduing pestle did not slow down and directly smashed into the ferocious beast's head. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. The ferocious beast let out a blood-curdling screech as he retreated. His entire head caved in, having been struck by the demon fall pestle. It was extremely terrifying. Buzz! The shock wave formed by the demon-slaying pestle hitting his head instantly spread out. The foreign creatures that were following the Beast Emperor were annihilated almost instantly, forming a vacuum area. This ominous beast seemed to have recognized Yi Shiwen at once. The battle between Yi Shiwen and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor had fallen into the eyes of many people. So, they knew that Yi Shiwen was not in existence to be trifled with. Alien creatures were violent by nature, but it didn't mean that they had no intelligence. This ferocious beast seemed to recognize Yi Shiwen. Many people had seen Yi Shiwen's battle with the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. They knew that Yi Shiwen was not in existence to be trifled with. The ferocious beast of the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor was innately violent, but it did not mean that they had no intelligence. Yi Shiwen had been defeated by the Night Emperor. However, what kind of existence was the Night Emperor? He had almost single-handedly broken through the Storm City. So, it wasn't surprising that he had been defeated by him. It was hard to say how many people had been defeated by him since ancient times. The Emperor-tier dire beast took advantage of the situation to escape in an instant. It thought to itself, how could it have met such a freak? It was practically dying before it could even achieve anything. It would not get a share of the reward for conquering Storm City. However, when he swept out his divine senses, he suddenly saw a scene that made him scared to death. He saw that Yi Shiwen had unfolded his devil's wings behind him, and his body passed through the space again and again. In an instant, he had already appeared behind him. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen unfolded his transcendence true body. His body became bigger and bigger. Then, he stomped down on the ferocious beast. Yi Shiwen's foot was just too big after unleashing his transcendence true body. It was just like an ancient sacred mountain. The ferocious beast rolled left and right, trying to escape. However, it was of no use at all. No matter how it rolled, it found that it couldn't escape from the range of Yi Shiwen's foot. Bang! Yi Shiwen fiercely stepped on the body of this emperor-level ominous beast and directly trampled this huge monster into Stormwind City and smashed it into the depths of the endless mountains. The emperor-level creature felt that all the bones in its body were about to be crushed. A storm rose in its heart. Yi Shiwen's strength was even more terrifying than when he was watching from afar. However, this wave of attacks wasn't over yet. The martial emperor's seal rotated above Yi Shiwen's head and became bigger and bigger. It soon became as dazzling as a star. It blossomed with endless martial arts radiance and smashed downwards. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud slowly rose into the sky. This emperor-level ominous beast screamed pitifully and was directly killed by Yi Shiwen. Its soul was completely annihilated. Yi Shiwen had already gained some experience in killing these emperor-level existences, as he had killed more and more emperor-level existences. After all, emperor-level existences weren't without weaknesses. It was difficult for ordinary people to kill them because they were not strong enough. At the same time, they had not found the trick. Yi Shiwen retracted the martial emperor seal and was about to continue killing. Suddenly, he felt a powerful aura lock on him. Yi Shiwen immediately stopped and did not continue to attack. Human, you are very good. Unfortunately, have you not heard of this saying? The bird that sticks out will be shot. The tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. A deep and cold voice came from the sky. Then, everyone only saw a middle-aged man slowly appear in front of them. This man had an incomparably powerful aura. He was dressed in a blue robe. His appearance seemed to have stolen the fortune of heaven and earth. Very strong, but he has not reached the 9th realm. This is the 8th realm. Yi Shiwen estimated the strength of this person for a moment and immediately estimated the strength of this person. He immediately became vigilant. Although the existence of the 8th realm was not as dazzling as the existence of the 9th realm, in a situation where the 7th realm was considered a small number of dominant forces, the existence of the 8th realm was almost invincible. Especially now that there was no existence of the 9th realm on Storm City's side, who could suppress him? There was not even an existence of the 8th realm that could contend against him. You are the Spirit Emperor. Hiss, even he has come personally. Someone finally recognized this middle-aged man. Yi Shiwen also finally understood who this person was. The Spirit Emperor was the current general under the command of Pantheon Venerable. This time, Pantheon Venerable did not personally appear to besiege Storm City. Instead, he was led by this Spirit Emperor. Originally, almost everyone did not take this Spirit Emperor seriously. In a situation where there was a battle emperor, no matter how strong the Spirit Emperor was, he would not be able to cause any trouble. However, the battle emperor was missing now, and the unexpected appearance of the five-colored winged lord and the night emperor had also fought in the depths of the endless galaxy. In other words, the current Storm City actually did not have a single person who could resist the Spirit Emperor. And when the Cloud Emperor, who was fighting in the distance, saw this scene, he could not help but sneer. Although this was a time where everyone needed to be united, he still wanted Yi Shiwen to die. Not only did Yi Shiwen cause Heavenly Taoism to lose face, but he also caused him to lose face. Everyone saw that he had lost to Yi Shiwen. If it was not because of the sudden attack of the foreign creatures, he might even have died in Yi Shiwen's hands. When this matter was over, the fact that he had lost to Yi Shiwen would spread throughout the Fortune God dynasty. At that time, he would be despised wherever he went. He couldn't even find a reason. After all, it was a fair competition in the life and death arena. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had fought with Yi Shiwen before, so it should have been more advantageous for him. However, he had still failed under such circumstances. So, how could he still find a reason to flatter himself? Under such circumstances, he naturally hoped that Yi Shiwen would die. It would naturally be best if he could bring the Spirit Emperor down with him. Uncle Yi, on a high mountain in Storm City, a young man looked at the sky with a worried expression. The turbulence in his heart had not yet subsided. This person was naturally young Wang Jun previously. When he listened to Yi Shiwen's words, he did not have any doubts. He quickly chose a place and began to cultivate in seclusion. For the sake of safety, he even brought his parents to his side. He had never doubted Yi Shiwen's words. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the forces under the banner of Pantheon to besiege Storm City. And Many experts were stationed in Storm City one after another. The war was on the verge of breaking out. He would have taken his family and left Storm City if it weren't for the fact that Storm City only allowed people to enter and not leave. After that, he entered closed-door training and had no idea what had happened outside. It was only when Yi Huang's spear had directly breached Stormwind City that terrifying tremor had destroyed who knew how many spirit formations. It had also completely destroyed the spirit formations that he had set up before entering closed-door training. Only then did he finally realize what had happened outside. As soon as he came out of his closed-door cultivation, he saw a shocking battle. Emperors who originally only existed in the myths and legends of the heavens not only appeared in front of him one by one, but also fought fiercely in the sky. And the most shocking thing in his heart was that he had always thought that Uncle Yi was very powerful. He never imagined that Yi Shiwen was not only powerful, but also an extremely powerful emperor. A emperor who could sweep away millions. His heart could not calm down for a long time. It seemed that he still could not accept the reality in front of him. Chapter 3166. At the level that he could come into contact with, he originally thought that Uncle Yi was just a powerful god. At most, he would be a god king. This was already the highest estimation in his heart. No matter which level of god it was already far beyond his imagination. But now he found that the Uncle Yi in his memory was not a god at all. It could be said that he was completely above countless people. He was an eternal and invincible emperor lord. That kind of might wasn't something that an ordinary emperor could compare to. With his eyesight and strength, he naturally could not tell who was stronger and who was weaker among the sovereign emperors. However, he could also tell that the monarch-level ferocious beast that Uncle Yi had killed with one strike was definitely not as strong as Uncle Yi. And now, the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared would probably be a strong opponent of Uncle Yi. In his heart, Yi Shiwen was close enough to be on par with his parents. How could he not be worried? But even if he was worried, he could not do anything about it. Originally, he was very interested in Yi Shiwen's affairs, but Yi Shiwen always kept his mouth shut. He could not understand it first, but now he completely understood. It was not that Yi Shiwen did not want to talk, but he was not qualified to participate at all. Even if it was just to hear it, it was already a great thing for him. For ordinary people, the secrets between the emperor lords were no different from listening to a myth. However, he finally understood in his heart what kind of fortuitous encounter this was. Not everyone could have the guidance of an emperor lord since childhood. He carefully recalled many of Yi Shiwen's teachings. Originally, he only remembered these words because he trusted Yi Shiwen very much. Now, he found that it was far from enough. How could the teachings of an emperor lord be so simple? They must be the truth. If he could absorb and digest those teachings, coupled with the set of buried sword technique that he cultivated, his future would be limitless. Yi Shiwen just stood still high in the sky, looking at the Spirit Emperor in front of him. The Spirit Emperor's body carried an extremely dangerous feeling. The Pantheon Venerable had many experts under his command. He could even fight head-on with the Fortune God dynasty. And the Spirit Emperor could become a general under the Pantheon Venerable in this environment where there were many experts. Many things could be imagined. Spirit Emperor. Yi Shiwen slowly spat out these two words. Your performance is pretty good, and your future is limitless. It's just a pity that Yi Huang informed me to take your life just now. You're pretty good as well. To be able to make a figure like Yi Huang constantly want to kill you. The Spirit Emperor just looked at Yi Shiwen indifferently. It seemed as if killing Yi Shiwen was already in the bag. There were 9 stages of the Imperial Monarch realm, and every single stage was like ascending to the heavens. With his cultivation at the 8th stage, it was sufficient to suppress the 7th stage. Really? I don't think this is an honor. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, Yi Huang wants to kill you, but I don't have to. Now that his lordship has returned, it's time for him to use people. Your strength isn't bad. If you're willing to surrender, I'll spare your life. Spirit Emperor said in an indisputable tone. In fact, It seemed as if he was giving face to Yi Shiwen by saying so. It seemed as if he was doing this for his own good. Yi Shiwen turned a deaf ear to him. At this moment, the sky had already been dyed red with blood. There were fierce battles everywhere, and roars could be heard everywhere. Corpses fell from the void one after another. No one knew how many years had passed since they had died. They were all super experts above the God Realm. As for those below the God Realm, they were not recruited because it was useless even if they were recruited. All of them together could not even withstand a single attack from an emperor. To the higher-ups, they were also considered as civilians. They were nothing if they did not prove their Tao. Immortal level, eternal realm, almighty, divine king, quasi-emperor, and all sorts of top experts died one after another. Kill. Blood flowed like rivers in the sky and on the ground. To the many emperors, it was difficult for them to even change their expressions in such a scene. Martial Emperor, hold him back for a while. Wait for me to activate the ancient formation and drive him out. Suddenly, the butterfly sovereign's voice sounded in Yi Shiwen's mind through telepathy. There was anxiety in the butterfly sovereign's voice that was initially calm. He knew very well that half of Storm City would fall if the barrier was broken. If the level 8 Spirit Emperor was allowed to kill unscrupulously, Storm City would not be able to hold on. The Battle Emperor was not around, and Storm City's top combat power was lacking. Reinforcements from other places would not be able to rush over anytime soon. Even if there were level 9 experts, they could not be deployed because they had been sent to monitor the top experts in the Storm Sea region. Understand now, Yi Shiwen replied through telepathy as well. There was indeed no other way at this moment. He could only forcefully hold the Spirit Emperor back. It seems like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The Spirit Emperor's expression became colder. To him, he was given a way out, but he did not want it. He was digging his own grave. I wanted to spare your life, but it seems like you're really digging your own grave. Since you want to die with Storm City, I'll fulfill your wish. The Spirit Emperor finally moved as he spoke. His figure flew out in an instant. Quick, quick, quick. In an instant, that terrifying force had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. A strange phenomenon appeared behind him, and thousands of Azura battlefields formed instantly. They turned into a terrifying attack and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone. The time robe appeared on his body, and it turned into the time divine kingdom to protect him. At the same time, the martial emperor seal above his head rotated and fluctuated up and down. 3,000 martial arts erupted from it, and it was these 3,000 martial arts that continuously slaughtered the foreign creatures. Wherever they passed, there was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and the terrifying power of the 6 paths seemed to evolve into a universe on his fist. The power of the universe was born and destroyed within it. Boom! Yi Shiwen directly blasted his fist into the thousands of Azura battlefields. It was unknown how many Azura battlefields were destroyed, but at the same time, more Azura battlefields were born. In this Azura battlefields, the Spirit Emperor was like a matchless god of war, dominating everything. This Spirit Emperor actually cultivated the laws of the battlefield. In this battlefield of slaughter, his strength would be further enhanced, and his combat power would be maximized. Boom! Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation fist constantly strangled these Azura battlefields, and these Azura battlefields were also constantly strangling the fist power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. In just a short period of time, it was like 2 worlds had collided in the sky, and terrifying scenes of destruction could be seen everywhere. The spreading shock waves instantly annihilated some of the armies of both sides, and directly cleared a large area of no man's land. The armies of both sides immediately retreated and did not dare to approach this shocking battlefield. It was really too terrifying. Even the shock waves were enough to kill them in an instant. Even ordinary sovereign emperors might be injured by the eruption of the shock waves. Then they went around the 2 of them and directly fought again. There was blood everywhere, and the sky and earth were raining blood. It looked extremely cruel. And at this time, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Spirit Emperor seemed to finally be decided. The fist power of Yi Shiwen's 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist was completely devoured, and Yi Shiwen used a dragon rise and phoenix fall to escape from the endless Azura battlefields. In the battle with the Spirit Emperor, he was at a disadvantage, but he did not suffer a loss. The Spirit Emperor frowned slightly, and there seemed to be a bit of disbelief in his eyes. It was natural for him to win. His strength was far above Yi Shiwen, who had just broken through to the 7th realm. But he only had the upper hand and did not really injure Yi Shiwen. This was what surprised him the most. Whether he had used his full strength just now, only he himself knew. It was impossible to not gain anything from a 7th realm sovereign emperor. This Yi Shiwen was indeed strange. He was completely different from other 7th realm sovereigns. It was no wonder that a big shot like the Night Emperor would not forget to kill him. If he could not recruit this kind of person, then he must not let him live. An even more intense, killing intent burst out of his eyes. On the other side, Yi Shiwen also escaped from the strangulation of the Azura battlefields. He was slightly surprised. The 8th realm was indeed powerful. The 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist that he had used was completely devoured. Purely in terms of strength, the Spirit Emperor was probably at the peak of the 8th realm, and he had only just entered the 7th realm. He was not even at the peak of the 7th realm. At the last moment, if he had not escaped in time, his arm might have been injured. Fortunately, he did not want to kill him, nor did he want to rely on his own strength to drive him away. He just wanted to delay him. Yi Shiwen was confident that he could still do this. On the contrary, a thought emerged in his mind. Previously, he wanted to use the Gunmetal Tiger Emperor as a whetstone. Unfortunately, the Gunmetal Tiger Emperor could not withstand a single blow from him. But this Spirit Emperor was different. His strength was far superior to the Gunmetal Tiger Emperor, but far inferior to the Night Emperor. He was stronger than him, but not so strong that he could kill him. He was an excellent whetstone. Whether or not his cultivation could progress beyond common sense in a short period of time depended on the Spirit Emperor in front of him. Only in the most intense and dangerous situations could a person completely unleash their full potential. What a whetstone! The Spirit Emperor did not know what Yi Shiwen was thinking and did not know that he had become a whetstone. But the killing intent in his heart was constantly burning, as if it wanted to burn through the sky. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.